Hey guys. This is part 5 of What If Naruto has Byakugan and Emotionless. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start. Chapter 31, Report Extract 663 Homecoming. Report Update 663. The mission may be done. I will only know when I hear of the result. However, the cost may be dire. With the 10th stage complete, and all parts of the dose prepared, I hinged once more into the clothes and manner of a chef. I do not know how long it took, only that I finally managed to feed him his dose. In truth, it was a stroke of luck that I managed to do so. He had returned from a mission. He struck me and other staff as he demanded his food. I gave it to him with trembling hands. He mistook my excitement for fear. His arrogance was his undoing. Excitement. I have not felt that in so long. It felt good. He ate the food and left. I could only hope. I was trembling badly. I knew this was something I should have made a shadow clone for, but it was too risky. Sensed, and it was the end of my plan, the wastage of a year. Yet more importantly, I had to do this myself. I had to see him take the dose with my own eyes. I had to know the feeling of victory even as he was unaware of his defeat. The hours were the longest I've known, even in this dark place. This dark place of waiting. I have spent day after day trapped in my hidey hole, waiting and listening. Dodging guards, hiding from sensors, suppressing my chakra. The ache of the seal is still as strong as it was the first day, and its shackles are wearing on me, but I was successful. I have not seen the body, and shall not do so before leaving this place, but I know the effects have begun. I have other eyes who will confirm for me. There can be no chance of his survival. As I write, his body should be filling itself with toxin as fast as they tried to treat him. He should have died within moments if they did not treat him instantly. I have won the long game, or at least played my final moves. I did not know until it happened. He stormed into the kitchens himself. The great fear, the one we all feared so much. Orochimaru himself came to us. The wall was destroyed, and we all found ourselves shivering. I have not known a feeling like it. I was fighting harder than I ever had to stay silent, to curse the man whose plan I had foiled over so long. I had to remain controlled, had to act my part until the last moment. He and his guards raged. The kitchen was destroyed in his fury, and he then began the cull. Again, I was lucky I was not first. I had time to create and substitute with a shadow clone. It took me so long to do the jutsu, forming every sign behind my back with as much control as possible, trying to give off as little chakra as I could. She felt the chakra. She was behind them all in the doorway, but she felt the discharge. I escaped into the vents, and I saw them drag the clone away as his henge was thrown away from him. He is not dead. Their love of torture will ensure that. Eventually, though, my control will slip and they shall know I live. I must escape before then. My summons will give me the word on my success. They are good at finding secrets. I had an expression once, whilst waiting for my first mission with Enko-chan, a name that is almost unfamiliar now. 2 guards played cards, and one chuckled as he took money from the other. I did not understand card games at the time, but my time with the chefs taught me the basics. You played your hand too soon, and I capitalized. The other derided his luck, yet the first that spoke had some merit. My hand is played, and I must escape before they realize it and capitalize on it. Otherwise they will find me. He will rip the base apart. I will finish the report when I have seen the sun. Her face came to me again. She smiled for the first time in all my dreams. Team 8 moved along the northern border. It was another routine mission for the Chunin teams now that the border with Suna was almost an irrelevant area. Odo was the new threat, even if it hadn't attacked. Hinata scanned the area all around with her Byakugan as her teammates did their own checks. There wasn't anything. There never really was, she sighed to herself. This was the last mission. She tried without him being there. She tried. She talked to everyone and they'd all done their best to keep her going. She managed to pass a Chunin exam somehow, although she suspected the competition hadn't been very strong. Just without his smile, without his constant encouragement, without his sunshine smile, she couldn't do this anymore. She couldn't keep being a shinobi. She'd cried over his body, his broken body. She'd held on to it regardless of the wounds and the blood when Kakashi had come into the village in the pouring rain. She'd cried for days. She hadn't been able to make it to the funeral, and had been physically ill. She would retire from shinobi life, then she would live out her days somehow. Maybe she'd find someone who didn't make her miserable and have children. but there wasn't hope for happiness. The past was bleak, the present was bleak, and the future was bleak. Her mood pervaded those of her teammates who couldn't talk on the saddest of days. She knew there wasn't anything moving with nearly a mile of her. Nothing with a chakra signature could hide from her sight. Then she heard the noise. A scream, a man's scream. A yell of agony beyond anything she had ever heard before. The chakra exploded into life in her vision, and she burst into action towards it. She ran, ignoring her teammates' cries to hold back until she knew what it was. They were in pain, and if it was a trap, she would deal with it. Death didn't matter. If this was the trap that it chose to claim her with, she would welcome it willingly. The scream intensified as she got near, now a hoarse cry that echoed in the trees. She reached the figure which thrashed wildly from side to side where it lay. It was wrapped in a tattered cloak the color of the forest, and a ripped body glove. It was small and wiry. She gripped its shoulders and pushed it to the ground, her hair falling down so it touched his face. She knocked the dagger the figure suddenly held out of its grasp. It stuck in the dirt by his equipment. A bag, a crossbow, another pouch. A crossbow? The figure had stopped struggling against her now. The fact she had struck its shoulders helped that. It still yelled, the sound now a loose tearing sound of agony, weakening into a panting hiss. She pulled back the hood and saw the face. Its single visible eye was closed, the face dirty and so unwashed. His mouth was open in a now silent yell of pain before slowly closing. The face was pale, as if it hadn't seen the light for years. There were dark patches under his eyes. His face was gaunt and thin, the whisker marks on its cheeks faded almost to nothing. For a moment it was still after the scream stopped. The visible eye opened. She saw hair, cut in the dark and thick matted locks. His face had a scraggly beard on it which would have been comedic if he wasn't in such bad shape. The azure blue met her pale lavender eyes. His mouth opened, and his raw voice whispered forth a thin rasp. I hope you smile this time. She smiled without being able to resist it somehow. His mouth twitched, then he fell unconscious. Kiba and Shino landed behind her and ran to meet her. Hinata-chan, who even is it? Him. Her voice trembled a little. Him. Her voice was quavering badly as she said it. Kiba drew in closer and took a long look at the face. Him? Don't you recognize him? Kiba saw the equipment pile and looked at the face again. Then again. Oh. It is him. What the hell? We need to get back to Konoha. Now. But? Her tone of voice was wavering, but brooked absolutely no disobedience. Now. Kiba moved the body onto Akamaru's back and they set off. Mission protocol be damned, this was important. If Odo attacked, she didn't care. She would run through the night and carry him back. She needed to know. She wanted answers. He would give them to her. He was coming home, whether he wanted to or not. Chapter 32, A Glorious Return. Enko shifted excitedly as she waited outside the containment area. A high-profile target had been brought into the TNI cells, and she wanted to know who it was. She wanted to know which lucky person had been given the job of interrogating him. If she had been taken off another case to do this one, then it had to be something good. Not perfect. Ibiki would have taken it on then. In a few moments, Ibiki would hopefully appear and tell her that she had the job. She licked her lips at the prospect. She would make them stew in their own fear before breaking them. She would unpick their mind. So many glorious things she could do. She began hopping from foot to foot as she waited for the news. The harsh echoes of heavy boots on the concrete floor of the corridors made her look up. Ibiki strolled towards her as if nothing was different in life, as if he were walking through the park on a fine summer's day. She hopped as he got close, nearly fully jumping up and down. Can I have them? Can I have them? Please? Please? Please, Ibiki-kun? Can I have fun now? He's all yours, Enko, but there is additional information you need to know before. Yay! This is going to be awesome. Ibiki tried to grab her before she entered the doorway to the cells, but she had gone too far already. He sighed. She was in for a rude shock. Still, it would teach her to listen to him first. She bounced off a wall and came to the cell door. She peered inside. There was the silhouette of someone in the corner of the cell. A small, barred window let in a dismal amount of weak light into the room. The person was huddled up. Probably scared. That was no fun. She preferred defiance. Hello there, I get to play with you today. It's gonna be fun. I have so many toys to share with you. Her cheerful voice echoed and re-echoed off the walls of the concrete cell. The figure didn't move, not even an inch. Oh, you're not going to be fun? The only answer was her own echoing voice. She smiled. A tough guy then? Someone who thought they could block her out indefinitely? This was going to be better than she'd hoped. Ready or not, here comes Anko-chan. She undid the lock and kicked the door in, allowing the metal to rebound off the cell wall as it swung round. It clattered and clanged with an apocalyptic noise. She grinned as she advanced on the lump in the corner. She gripped it by the neck and pulled. The blanket came away and she was blinded with smoke from a bomb hidden beneath it. She coughed. How the hell did he still have equipment on him? Surely it had all been confiscated. There was a note where he had been. It was only one word, sorry. She turned and ran out of the door towards where Ibiki had been. He was still standing there, quite a surprise then. Anko, you're not fucking kidding. Look, I was going to tell you when. Tell me he's fucking gone? It took a lot to surprise Ibiki. This was something that had managed to. Anko realized that this was probably not a good thing. What? He's gone and he left a smoke bomb. Fuck. Who the hell was that? No time. We need to go the confiscated equipment area. Why? Because that's exactly where he will be going. They ran, junior torturers getting out of their way with efficient speed. If Ibiki was running, then shit was going down. As he ran, Ibiki called on everyone he could see to either get out of his way, or lock down the TNI department. They did so with speed. An escaped prisoner would cause havoc. Ibiki's heavy boots dug a gouge into the surface of the floor as he rounded corners, metal-clad soles ripping the smooth surface apart as he followed the corridors to the confiscation area. The door was open and he powered on through. Guards. He looked at the two booths, each on opposite sides of the entrance, each a perspex box, windows 2 inches thick glass and a door that was locked from the insides. Both doors were open and both men unconscious. How the hell? We may not be too late. They split, running through the storage room. Dull overhead lights blinked occasionally as they swept the room. Ibiki reached the storage box that should have contained his equipment. He too found his head engulfed in smoke, and he became giddy. A sleep bomb? He focused himself and shook off the weak chemical. It would take more than that to knock him out. Anko came up alongside him and sniffed the air. Did he leave a sleep bomb in this one? The scent is unmistakable. Ibiki threw the empty box aside, letting the noise clatter and slam as it hit the wall. He hit the shelving for good measure, leaving a sizable dent in the steel. How the hell did he do it? No one escapes their cell, sneaks through TNI and then steals back their equipment. This does not happen. Who is this person? Ibiki? Naruto. Oh, that's just all kinds of shit. We're gonna need some ANBU. Talon moved along the rooftops along with every ANBU that had been in the barracks when Ibiki had barreled through the door. Right now, they were spreading over the entire city as quietly and quickly as possible, trying not to cause a major alarm. He suspected there were going to be even more jonin up here sooner rather than later, and he wanted to get this call done first. He knew where the house was. He knew where to look, and this time he wasn't going to bother with a quiet entry. The days where it was a game to try and get his attention and test him were long over. He kicked through the window and twisted his body to avoid the expected crossbow bolt. There was nothing. Broken glass and the curtain he had ripped off the wall were all that was on the floor. A thick layer of dust had been disturbed and blasted up into the air in the apartment. He felt out for chakra and found nothing. That meant nothing. The boy had managed to escape TNI. He moved as quickly as he could to slam the light switch on and the apartment was revealed once more to him. No more shadows for Naruto to hide in. The only other place was the bathroom if he could be there. He kicked the door off its hinges and hit the switch there. Nothing. He turned right into sleep bomb and slumped onto the sofa, silently cursing the boy's brilliance as his brain shut down. He would wake up to find a note with the word sorry written on it pinned to his jacket. Repeat this to me again. He escaped TNI. My ANBU captain isn't reporting and was found unconscious in the target's house, and nobody has been able to find him? That is as far as we know, Hokage-sama. Ibiki, what the hell? Is this a nightmare genjutsu you're testing on me? I wish I'd be in less trouble for it. Damn right. She drank from the bottle of sake directly and deeply. Who is on it? All of ANBU available, every Inuzuka, Aburame and Hyuga we could discreetly get into action and every elite jonin we could find. And still nothing? Kami help us if he left Konoha. We caught him by chance the first time. Where is Team 8? You think he'll try and find them? He'll try to find Hinata, if her statements are accurate, and I'm guessing right. She should be in the Hyuga compound. He couldn't possibly? He could. Find Kakashi and let's move. The sound of something outside her door woke her. She hadn't really been sleeping, more a sort of half-doze where her mind refused to let fully go of consciousness. She needed answers. She wanted to be awake and doing something, not leaving it to other people. She slipped out of bed and pulled the nightrobe around herself before slipping out of her room. There was a place for her to be. She made no sound as she walked on the smooth wooden floors of the compound. She could see nobody else was around, and even if they had been, no one would really have challenged her. Enough of them had seen her do this. She slid open the door to the small garden at the center of the compound. It was the place of her earliest memories, playing here long ago, when life had been simple and she felt the love of her parents. Both her parents. So long ago. She sat by the still pond at its center, resting on the smooth flagstones that spiraled out from it like the swirls on the Konoha Chunin vests. The night was still and cloudless, and she spared a glance up at the sky. The stars spread out before her, encompassing the heavens. She could see the thin bands of distant stars sweeping out around her. She saw one of them blink quickly. Stars did not blink. She snapped on her Byakugan and couldn't sense any chakra signatures. She focused the vision to look for the outlines of anyone in black and white around her. There was nothing. She must have blinked. She shut off the vision and shook her head gently, hair sliding over her eyes before she pushed it back. She was definitely too tired to be thinking straight. Perhaps this was a dream. If it was a good dream. She looked at the still waters and saw the reflection of the moon in them, and the face of someone else looking into her eyes via the reflection from behind her. She nearly made a noise before the hand covered her mouth. She fought for a second before calming. He wasn't going to kill her. The hand was withdrawn slowly and she remained silent until he was seated on the other side of the pond again. Yes. I needed to see your face? Why? Why mine? You're in dreams. They're better, you smile. She stared at him. This was definitely uncomfortable. I know, He waited, impassively staring at her from under his hood. She felt a surge of anger burst from inside her at what he was doing to her. How dare he enter her compound and disturb her? You killed him. The words sounded venomous, but she meant it. She wanted to mean it. She wanted to be angry. You killed him. A tear fell from her face and hit the still waters of the pond. The ripples spread and distorted the images she could see, the chaotic dance of the wave interference enacting as waves bounced off the smooth rim. I did not kill him. Sasuke used him, shield. You still fired. I didn't want kill. You still did. I'm sorry. More tears fell into the pond, the ripples growing and colliding even more, his image swirling. She felt his thin arms wrap around her gently. She allowed him a couple of seconds before she shoved him away roughly. He backed off, walking across the surface of the pond, the chakra he used to stay on its surface calming the ripples. There was a noise at the entrance to the compound, and she looked at his reflection once more, only to see that he was gone. The pug dog sniffed carefully around, nose twitching as he smelt the smells. With a nose as sensitive as his, he could sense the trails that others left almost as if he could see them. Right now, he was frustrated. Hinata had met him, she had talked to him. She had indicated right where he had sat, and he could barely get a trace. That trace was thin and disorienting. He growled deeply as he concentrated to pick out the trail. They were good, but his nose was better. He set off, hearing the rest of the dog pack following in his wake, Kakashi then behind them, ready for action. It was an odd trace. He couldn't put a color to it like he normally could. It was a dark smell. Not black, just dark. That was off-putting. It was a jinking trail, but it was so thin he had to follow it nearly exactly. If he was quick, then he would be able to outpace him. He pushed his limbs onwards in the chase. A small movement caught his eye as a rat darted into an alley. He resisted the urge to chase it down. He was on a mission. The trail then split. He cursed the fact it did so, and carried straight on. It had the best chance of finding the target, and its height was about right for a straight-on run. He was annoyed to find the figure had just looped around back across its own path. He pressed on, Kakashi and the rest of the pack following in his wake, each searching with their own senses for the target. He rounded a corner, and his smell burst into bright green agony. The target had dropped something that smelled very, very strong. Peppermint? Where had he even got that? He coughed as the smell got more potent. The trail was completely obliterated by the peppermint smell. Kakashi landed next to him. I can smell the mint from here packin'. I'm guessing the scent is dead. Pretty much. I could try picking it up outside the peppermint cloud, but I suspect he's left a second. I'm not underestimating the kid. He's elusive. Don't worry. I think direct tracking isn't going to quite work on him. We have to think this one through. You can have a rest. Good, my nose hurts from that smell. The dog disappeared in a puff of smoke and Kakashi sighed. Naruto was loose in the city and he could be anywhere. There were jonin and ANBU everywhere, and he had been in the Hyuga compound with no difficulty. Where would he have been? What would he have talked to Hinata about? What would she tell him? He ran for the monument. It was odd to be running there. He normally went there to relax and rest, and now he was hunting down someone who sought absolution. He landed as the rain began to lightly fall from the sky, and approached the monument at full speed. He suspected Naruto would sense him coming anyway. Stealth was useless. He was definitely faster than the boy at this stage. The ground in front of the monument was barely disturbed, but someone had been there. Someone had sat in front of the monument and tried to read the names. Unconsciously, Kakashi found his gaze drawn to the names he knew. He noted them quickly. There was no time to be reverential. He paused when he read the name of one of his students, when he realized the full truth. Naruto didn't know that name. He didn't know who he was going to be on trial for killing. He wanted the answers. He moved for the tower as the rain fell. The first crash of thunder sounded as Tsunade was looking out over the city. She could see her forces sweeping the city to find one person. One elusive person. She turned to the only other person in the room, Shikaku Nara. The Jonin commander had just finished giving her an update. You're sure? Entirely. Give it time. She kept watching the city as the power in the room went out. Commander, what are the chances of a lightning strike taking out the power to the Hokage tower? Extremely low. How unlucky we are then. Indeed. She went back to waiting. There was the sound of silence. She turned back into the office as the lightning flashed once more, revealing the figure standing in front of her desk for the briefest of moments. His name. Tell me, did you have to cut power to the tower? Didn't want light. Want name. Why should I tell you? You never asked? You never asked him. Why should I tell you? You, no, name. The crossbow swung up. Despite his unsteady speech, his motor control was as tight as ever. The point was not moving at all, and she knew it was pointed right at her jugular. You think threats will work? There was silence. Why do you want to know his name? He was precious to me, like the son I didn't have. He was the living embodiment of two people I loved, and now he is dead just like them. He looked so like Nawaki, and he used the same technique Dan did. I would sooner die than tell you his name. She knew he was conflicted. Killing her was against everything he stood for. It wasn't an ordered kill, or one in combat. It would be murder. He needed the information. She saw his fingers tighten and stop. Shikake has you in his shadow jutsu, doesn't he? Yes. I wish talk. Make him put the bow away, Commander. I should order him to kill you right now, you do realize? The bow was deliberately and carefully disarmed and slung back over his back. Yes, you won't. She realized that was as well as he could talk. How long had it been since he had last had a conversation? Since he made any noise louder than a whisper? He was trying to string words together, and words were missing. Why won't I? Give me a reason. You don't like secrets. If you killed now this people, questions. They know something happened in you. Answers, not. Any other reasons? You don't killing. True. So, why shouldn't I throw you back into TNI, secure with chakra restraining cuffs and cut off your legs so you cannot escape again? I report mission? What mission? Retrieve, kill, Uchiha. That mission was ended 3 years ago. The retrieval team was unsuccessful, and 4 of them nearly died in the process. One of them actually died. I did not kill him. It rather looks like you did. It looks like you and Sasuke both had a go at him, then you both disappeared. You know that looks like you're a traitor. Danzo was arguing that killing Sasuke would be a mistake. You see why I might be suspicious? Sasuke dead. Poisoned. You're doing? Yes. There was no lie in his eyes or his voice. His voice lifted a little at the words, and she saw a glimpse of his being resurrect a little. Proof? Visual corpse. Any other proof? I can witness. Your testimony is sketchy at best. I need summon. She nearly slipped from her chair at that request. You want to perform a summoning jutsu in my office whilst my Jonin commander restrains you? Yes. Shikaku, allow him to perform the jutsu. The lights were still out, so she couldn't see the puff of smoke, or if he whispered the summoning jutsu. She did hear a muffled squeak, and something scratching up her desk. A rat, barely visible from what little light the window now let in, appeared on her desk. Commander, could you find some kind of light source for me? Of course. Shall I bring Shizen in as well? Yes, please, and then you may stand down the remainder of our forces, including Kakashi. Actually, please come in, you must be soaking out there. A bedraggled Kakashi moved quickly through the window before closing it. The rain pattered on the glass surface. Thank you? Is that you, Naruto? Yes, came the response from the darkness in front of him. He pulled back his headband to try and see him better. The Sharingan stripped away a little of the shadows, no doubt caused by a genjutsu, to reveal a faint outline. He looked thin, so gaunt, the beard seeming to elongate his face. He was still short. Given you're not a smudge on the floor, I take it we're all talking nicely? Just for the moment, Kakashi. Naruto is reporting back from his mission. It was the voice that you used around a mentally unstable person, and Kakashi decided not to relax just yet. Oh, a quieter, oddly deep yet scratchy voice also spoke. Are you done, humans? They turned to the figure on the desk. It was a large rat, which wore a tattered black piece of cloth with a few lines on the back like some sort of character. Kakashi sized him quickly, realizing he was probably about Pakin's size. Tsunade looked at him closely for a few seconds. I apologize, I was distracted. I noticed. It is good you take care of your pack. I am Naruto's summon, and his witness to the death of Uchiha Sasuke. Why should I trust you? With respect, you are the summon of someone who may be an escaped missing nin, wanted for murder, who has just returned from the base of one of our greatest threats with a previously unknown contract. Unknown? The contract is almost as old as the snake and toad contracts. Merely forgotten by the years and derided for our lack of visible techniques, and human scorn for my kind. Forgotten or unknown, you are unexpected. May I know your name, Rat-san? My name is Fitch, the Rat Lord, Hokage-sama. If you wish to verify the Rat Clan as a summoning contract, I suggest you summon one of your slugs. Or perhaps have Kakashi-san summon one of his dogs. Or Naruto can summon more of my kin until your office is full. Tsunade shuddered at the thought. I will summon Katsuyu to verify your claim. Kakashi, please summon Pakin. The animals were summoned in puffs of smoke. Katsuyu slid up onto the desk, in a smaller form than her largest size. She looked around and gave a short bow to Tsunade, who nodded back to her, before running a hand over her blue markings. Pakin looked for permission from Kakashi before gleefully jumping onto the desk, sitting down to meet with his fellow summons. The meeting was one of the least likely things that Tsunade had been expecting that evening. A slug, a dog and a rat having a conversation on her desk. She watched fascinated as Pakin showed deference to the two smaller animals. She realized there was some sort of order to animal summoning clans, but that it was so complex and well observed was new. The rat bowed to the slug, who returned the gesture. The rat beckoned the dog to stop and began to squeak. There were nods and more animal noises, and it finished with another round of bowing. Katsuyu turned to face Tsunade. Fitch-sama is indeed the Rat Lord Tsunade-chan. Tsunade nodded. Thank you, Katsuyu. Pakin. You are dismissed. The summons disappeared in smoke, and she faced the rat. My apologies, Fitch-sama. Accepted, although drop the sama. You do know simply gain respect so quickly, so do not flatter me. Tsunade narrowed her eyes at the insult, but maintained composure. So Uchiha Sasuke is dead? Yes. I observed his corpse myself. He was practically bleeding toxin from his corpse. Her attention snapped towards Naruto, who stood silently before her desk in the darkness. How did you manage that? Report. You have a report? Yes. You instructed me, right. He produced a scroll and set it on her desk. Fitch placed a hand on it. The report is sealed within. It is quite long. It can't possibly be that long, can it? See and believe. The rat unsealed the report, and around 24 notepads appeared suddenly from the scroll. Tsunade eyed them up quickly. 13 volumes? Almost every night he updated it. He stole it. Like most everything else he had to eat or use. Nearly 1,000 nights? Yes. Naruto and Fitch echoed the word together. I will read this when I can. Tsunade stuttered slightly as she surveyed the report. Thoughts of turning this into a book were forgotten. This was unprecedented. As for his innocence over the death of the Konoha shinobi, it is not my tale to tell. However, I trust him as our summoner. I believe you are upset for more than professional reasons. Tsunade bristled with anger at the statement. You may be the chief of your clan, but speak like that to me again and you will suffer my wrath. The rat spat on her desk. I am right. Examine yourself. Her fist descended onto the table as he disappeared. The desk splintered beneath the blow into 2 pieces. Shizen came hurrying through the doorway. I came as soon as I could and, oh. What happened? I'll tell you later, Shizen. She wiped her hand on her clothes and sighed. That had been a rash move to make, and she already regretted it. He was right, infuriatingly right. She turned to Naruto, who remained still. I may have been hasty in throwing you to Tsunade, and I apologize for that. However, I must uphold law. You will be examined over this before you are declared innocent. As my judgment on this matter is impaired, Shizen will read your report and judge its worthiness. What? Tsunade-sama, you can't expect me to be able to judge such a document. I am a doctor, I am not prepared for such a. You are the perfect candidate. You are chief of my psychiatric division, and the only person who will take a balanced view. Tia and I look for suspicion everywhere, and no one else is as precise. Plus you like reading his reports? I suppose so, Tsunade-sama. I will do so. Where is the report? Kakashi gathered up the notebooks and handed them to her in a large pile. His eye smile was visible as he leaned out from behind them. In joy, she nearly staggered under the sudden weight he dropped into her arms. Get to it, Shizen. This is a mission of great importance. She wobbled out of the room, still surprised at what was going on. Tsunade turned her attention to Naruto as the lights blinked back on. She smiled. Ah, that is better at least. Let me see you, Naruto. Take off the hood. I dark, not light. I order you as Hokage. Hi. He dropped the hood and Tsunade looked at his face. It was pale. The whisker marks looked almost black in comparison to how he had before. His face was thinner and gaunter too. The beard too. It would be adorably poor if it wasn't for who wore it. Remove your cloak. He dropped the garment to the ground, and she only then realized how ragged and patched it was. Then realized that if it still covered him, he hadn't really grown. Then she realized that his body glove was loose. When did you last eat a full meal? Months. She ran to him as he collapsed. Kakashi caught him before he hit the ground. Tsunade straightened up as she looked at Naruto, and the full damage at 3 years of hiding in vents away from the light did to a person. Hospital. Now, Chapter 33 Diagnosis. The light on Shizen's desk was bathing the desk in artificial light as the first rays of dawn crept through the gap in her apartment curtains to join them. She felt the light from both sides and squirmed slightly in her sleep as the first shreds of conscious thought crept into her head. This was a bad pillow. Not a pillow. Paper. A report? Was reading. Had just to go the part where. She pulled herself upright and saw a patch on the paper where her face had rested on the report overnight. She pulled herself out of her chair towards a bathroom. A look in the mirror showed where the ink had partially transferred to her face. She washed it off quickly, which helped her wake up. The cold water splashed against her skin. She slumped back to the report. The first book was to one side, finished off sometime the previous night. She realized she'd been so entranced by what it said she didn't remember much of it. Only that it had been gripping and terrifying. Then again, rereading it wasn't a problem for her. She had been enjoying this book. She knew the writer had soul and eloquence, and serious problems. Even this close in, she'd realized that Naruto was going to be damaged by his years in the dark. It had taken maybe 70 or so updates to realize that he would have some paranoia. His dreams too, they came up a lot as well. Her psychoanalysis was already complicating. Her eyes lingered on the page she had just been reading. The darkness swallowed me as I moved through the 27th sub-passage I have found from the 4th corridor. I was further from my bolt hole than I had ever been, the patrols conspiring to keep me away from it these hours. I slipped into a corner as I heard the heavy tread of a patrol team stamp past me. My breathing is quiet, barely a whisper, hidden by the hum of the systems around me. Although I write of things in the past, I feel it must be told in the present tense. Such tension will not come out clearly in the dulled picture of the past. It is the difference between color and black and white to my mind. I must live once again in the moment to understand my thinking. The footsteps faded and I dove into another doorway. The room is dark, but well maintained. This much is obvious: there are no water puddles, no drip of leaking pipes. I follow the passageway. Distance becomes troubling. I have taken so many steps. I turn and realize that I have not moved more than 5 meters. There is light ahead. I am cautious of it. Light reveals secrets, but I am a secret that must remain hidden. The door that is visible radiates heat and light. It is clearly somewhere that I must avoid if I can. There are voices within, hushed voices. I listen carefully and hear the rise and fall of blades, the sound of impact on hard surfaces. I hear the bubble of hot water, and my nostrils flare at the scent. I have found the kitchens within the base. This is the day I can begin to truly unleash my plans. I leap, clinging to the ceiling, using all my control to use as little chakra as possible to crawl into a dark corner of the ceiling. I barely heard the man coming down the corridor in time to avoid him. I feel my body pulling at the chakra, as I try to use as little as possible to hold myself up. The man is half hidden in the dull light, and is only briefly illuminated as he enters the kitchen. There is a swish of white hair, and then his voice fills the kitchens, sneering at the men, demanding that they fulfill his requirements. The noise gives me time to get back to the 4th corridor and on the route home. It will be hard from now on, but I have the first real weakness. My journey back is unimpeded. I am concerned that Shizen patrols are tight. Are you okay? You're late, and we need your help at the hospital urgently. Shizen-sama? Sakura's voice. That was Sakura's voice. Not the report. She realized she'd got engrossed in the rough handwriting and drawn deeper into the story again. Never mind the odd tenses, she wanted to read more. Her tense body relaxed a little. She had risen on instinct by that time and opened the door. Sakura looked her in the eyes with concern. You don't look like you slept at all. Are you okay? Sakura placed a hand on her forehead, which Shizen slapped away playfully. You may be a good medic now, Sakura, but don't get carried away. Tsunade-sama gave me an extra mission that requires a lot of reading. I guess I got carried away. They began to head for the hospital, which wasn't far. That came from being on call nearly every hour of the year. I haven't seen you get this interested in reading since those books that came out some years ago. Shizen saw Sakura's face droop a little as she recalled those years. It had been hard on the poor girl to lose both of her teammates, both of whom she had deep feelings for. Tsunade had broken her out of her fugue and set her to work, and she had blossomed. She was stronger now, so much stronger. Ah, there were excellent books. Even you found solace in them. There was just something so familiar about them, like I knew the writer. Is what you're reading now as good? Shizen resisted the temptation to shout the word yes as loud as she could. Then again, it was the same author. This story was so much more substantial, so much more real than the others. It has its charms, but I still have a lot of reading to do. It's a mission as well, so I kinda lucked out, Sakura sighed. They had entered the hospital at a gallop and were rapidly climbing the stairs. What's the emergency anyway? Sakura scowled. I don't know, apparently only yourself and Lady Tsunade are allowed to see the patient. Is this something to do with the alert last night? You know I can't say, Sakura. Thanks for getting me. Back to work for you then. Hi! Sakura set off back into the hospital corridors as Shizen tentatively knocked on the door. A slot in the door slid back to reveal the porcelain of an ANBU mask. An eye met hers through the narrow slits in the mask before the door opened. She hurried in as the ANBU shut the door behind her. Tsunade looked up from where her hands ran over the body on the bed, glowing green with the diagnostic jutsu was taking effect. The body was pale and emaciated, and was hooked up to a number of 4 drips. Good of you to finally show up, Shizen. Nice to know I can get up earlier than you when I have to. 1 to you, 500 to me, Tsunade-sama. They laughed briefly before turning back to Naruto's prone form. How is he? Malnourished, deficient in at least a dozen vital nutrients but otherwise uninjured. One of those drips has a large amount of sedative in it just because I think he'd try to escape if we gave him the chance. Really? Well, he's an Uzumaki so he is naturally pretty tough, and he's a Jinchuriki. I'm actually not that surprised or worried by his physical condition. How is the report? Captivating. His writing just makes you want to read more and more. I fell asleep reading it, and got so engrossed when I woke up that I didn't hear Sakura calling for me for a few seconds. What does it tell you? Focus, Shizen, don't forget it is a mission report, not a novel. Oh, of course. Apologies, Tsunade-sama. I'm concerned for his mental state. He might have an extreme case of paranoia as well as issues caused by spending years practically alone. I thought as much. He's still human inside though. In fact, I think he's going to have grown more human. How? He's known loneliness. He's probably known fear, even if he doesn't know what it was. His happiness has been so few and far between that he's probably treasured a handful of moments from his time. Hell, I'd hazard he even got bored at one stage. Shizen realized quite how little of emotion he had known before the mission. Oh, anyway, who do we apply to therapy? I can't, I have personal issues with the boy and a village to run. You can't, she raised a hand to silence the objections that Shizen was about to being saying, because you're enmeshed in his report. We need someone who he will talk to, that he knows and trusts. Sakura probably isn't a good choice either because it looks like he killed her teammate. We could assign one of the psychiatric department's specialists, maybe Juchi Yamanaka. He's done excellent work and his jutsu would provide us with important insights. Too invasive. Whilst Naruto would appreciate the pragmatism of having the stuff ripped clean out of his head, there is too much sensitive information locked away in there. We need to draw it from him gently. So not Anko? She had a connection with him before he left, and I gather is urgently looking for him. Too blunt. I have an idea for someone who could though. Who? Tsunade smiled. Someone who needs someone to talk to like he does. However, I think I'll need to send him on missions as part of his therapy. What? That isn't responsible at all. On the contrary, you think he's going to stay quiet and compliant whilst he undergoes therapy? Point taken. The soft beeping of his own heart monitor was still too loud for Naruto. Then again, the sheets were soft enough, and he was comfortable. He opened his real eye and viewed the room blearily. He was in a hospital. That wasn't good. Then again, he was in a private room. He activated his Byakugan before deactivating it again quickly. That had hurt a lot more than it needed to. He tried to sit up and only got halfway. That was odd. He realized there were restraining straps on his chest and legs. Apparently he wasn't fully forgiven. That or his presence was urgently required here and here only. He decided to wait. Eventually, Shizen poked her head round the door and saw he was awake. "Ah, good afternoon, Naruto." She walked into the room and picked up the clipboard at the end of his bed, flipping the charts a little before inspecting the beeping box next to him. "Your vitals are fine, and we've been running 4 drips to bring your nutrient balances into something that resembles healthy. It's a miracle you're not more injured. The QB has likely kept you alive, which is something I still find medically astounding given how little of the thing's chakra you must receive." Naruto nodded. "You've been asleep 2 days. That explained why he felt somewhat rested and hungry. Would you like some food?" "Food would be welcome." Shizen nodded, and made a quick call via communications phone on the wall. "Anything else I can do for you? Can you remove the restraints?" Shizen chuckled. "Lady Tsunade specifically requested that you be restrained to stop you overexerting yourself." "Really? Well, she actually said keep the idiot in one place until I get to talk to him, but I interpreted it as you needing extra bed rest. Given your report, I mostly agree." "What the hell were you thinking? When?" "Anywhere from days 1 to 223. I haven't read the rest, but I assume you keep going. I explain in my report." "You don't explain why you do it all." "It was my mission," she sighed. "Anyone else would have given up once. Well, I'm not allowed to say his name died." That rang bells in Naruto's head. "What was his name?" "I'm not permitted to say. Lady Tsunade is the only one allowed to answer this, or someone she deems worthy." "Why not?" "It's her orders and my mission." Despite seeing his own answer thrown back at him perfectly, he felt angry about this. He fought against the bindings. Shizen placed a hand calmly on his shoulder. "Trust me, I want to tell you. But Lady Tsunade has ordered me not to, and I won't disobey her in this. Struggle too much, and I'll have to bring an ANBU in to knock you out if necessary. Just relax, okay?" He stopped fighting the strong straps. The door buzzed, and Shizen answered the door. She dismissed the other nurse politely, and wheeled in the trolley. The smell hit Naruto's nose and the sensations evoked exploded in his mind. It was like smelling everything for the first time. He breathed in deeply and Shizen smiled at the human gesture. The Akimichi clan produces the best medical food in the world, without exception. Most patients will actually eat it without complaining, which is more than can be said for the usual rubbish we serve. It's also got a larger than usual boost of proteins and nutrients. She raised a spoon and smiled an embarrassed smile. "Sadly, we've restrained your hands, so open wide." He opened his mouth and the spoon with the food was inserted. Never mind the texture, it was warm. He tried to remember the last time he'd had a warm meal in peace. He couldn't help but notice Shizen was blushing a bit. "Are you okay?" he blurted between mouthfuls of the food. She blushed a bit more. "Yes, but this is a little unusual. We don't have to strap patients down that often who are your kind of insane. Most of them are raving psychotics who don't think too much." Naruto nodded through a mouthful of the food. "You're actually sane and nice, so this is a bit weird for us both." "It is certainly unusual. I'm not complaining about the food. Hot food was not readily available. I thought that you were planning to infiltrate the kitchens." "I did, but the chefs don't eat well." Her movements paused for a moment. "How in the hell not?" "Excuse my language." "Your language? I used a word I don't usually. Hell is a word I consider rude." "Why?" "It's just a word. It's unimportant." "How did the chefs not eat well?" She fed him another spoonful. He gulped it down, feeling his stomach accept the food willingly. The way it was run was intended to keep them suppressed. "I'm guessing poor eating would assist in quashing fighting spirit." "It certainly would." "I'm guessing that bastard Kabuto was around then." "Yes. He was the day-to-day manager of sorts. He ordered the chefs around." "Very precise. I worried he would find me out." She shrugged and helped another spoonful of the food into his mouth. "You do realize that if you had been in there too much longer that your body would have stopped working properly?" "Yes. Fitch told me." "His clan can sense well-being like most animals can. Still, you managed your mission." "If it wasn't for the start then." Please do not mention the start, Shizen-san." "Oh, genuine emotion." "That was good. That was very good." She fed him the last spoonful of the meal, and he swallowed it happily. "How does that feel?" "Good. Only good?" "It's a high good. It is the most satisfying meal I have ever eaten." Although I suspect satisfaction is base relative to past experiences, with more recent ones more heavily weighted towards. She had things to read and cut him off before she was caught in more logic. Good. Now rest some more until Tsunade-sama comes to visit you. I'm afraid I'll have to leave someone in the room with you just to make sure. He mentally crossed that method of escape off the list. Shizen left, and the ANBU entered in her place. Ah, Talon? He thought the man was probably smiling behind the mask. Lion. How are you? Not tied up at all. I quite plainly am, he laughed. Always the straight man. I would be if I'd just been tied up and spoon-fed by Shizen though. Know what I mean? He didn't. No. Oh come on. It has to be hard not to be. His word emphasis was very odd. Hard to be what? Your sentences are odd. How long is it going to take you? Until what? Talon sighed and leant down next to him. Look, if that had happened to me I'd be standing to attention all right? Naruto's brain tried to tie together the words emphasized and fought to work it out. He had something, but it didn't make sense. Then again it never did. Are you talking about reproductive intercourse? Talon fell over backwards and just sat on his rear end for a second. Then he clapped his hands together a few times. Finally. She's a pretty lady, Naruto, a very pretty lady. Even you must notice that. Even though I find her aesthetically pleasing, I do not wish to have children with Shizen-san, and I doubt she would consent if I asked. Seriously? Yes. Why? Do you know otherwise? Talon turned away and breathed deeply for a moment. You know what? Asked Anko. Actually don't. Well do, but do so from behind a thick sheet of glass, okay? She's a very practical person. Naruto remembered this. So, you went 3 years in the bastard snake's base straight. 3 fucking years. How the hell are you alive? I hid and enacted my plan. How did you evade the guards? They were predictable and slow. They never really saw me at all. They thought I was there, and they patrolled near to me, but they never found me until the end. They found you and you're still alive? I switched with a shadow clone and left. Surely the clone died instantly? It did not. They wanted me to die slowly. I do not wish to speak of it. It was too late, and he felt pain from phantom wounds on his own body. His side burnt. He twisted to try and keep it off the mattress. Talon stood up and watched him tensely. Should I call someone? The pain is all mental. It was physical as well, but there was no need to mention it. He would lie as long as he could. A Yamanaka then? No. I have endured worse. I can endure my ghosts. The pain faded as he fought it. After all, he only remembered so far into the process. Then he realized why. He sank back onto the bed and crashed into unconscious sleep as the weight of memory fell upon him. Chapter 34 Social Call. Tsunade's skin read the charts rapidly, the information being stored into her brain so fast and so readily that those who didn't know her better would have thought she was bluffing. To a degree, they'd be justified. She didn't have the same knack for paperwork her predecessor had, and so boring things would slip her mind. Medical stuff, however, was a different story. How is he, Shizen? His speech has returned to normal, and he accepted food readily. His extreme patience aside, I believe he is becoming bored. He longs to get out and about. Good to hear. However, I have some reservations. He seems unhealthily worried about finding out the name. Ah yes. There was an unspoken agreement between them not to speak it. Tsunade found it too upsetting, and Shizen wasn't fond of the memories either, as he should, although I like that he has something to strive for. He will be driven. He doesn't need it. We should tell him and give him his closure. Tsunade smiled. Interesting. This is the first major disagreement in our thinking thus far, and has been for a long time. It is Lady Tsunade, but I do not think we can treat him like any other patient. He is too unique. Yes, I agree he needs counseling, but Hinata? Yes, Hinata. She needs this as much as he does. Were it not for this mission, she would now be a civilian training for a political role. She has far too much potential for that. I agree, but even so it seems like pushing her where she will be uncomfortable. This is where I want her to be. Remember what it took to get Sakura on track? Shizen nodded. The training had been brutal and unorthodox, and Tsunade had driven Sakura beyond her limits time after time. It had worked, but it had been painful to watch. She needs to be treated like that, only in a different way. Shizen sighed. Okay then, but when will you send Naruto on missions? As soon as he is ready. In fact, she steepled her hands and looked thoughtful. Kai. Shizen felt the chakra was from her dispelling attempt like a gust of wind. Apparently Tsunade wasn't taking any chance, and would simply blow away every genjutsu within a mile. Naruto appeared in a corner looking right at Tsunade. Hokage-sama, you realize once again I should have you killed? Yes. She smiled a little. Which idiot was guarding you when you escaped? An ANBU burst through the office doors, looked at the scene, and visibly wet himself. Shizen turned away to hide her amusement. Tsunade fixed him with a kindly stare like the one turkeys get before Thanksgiving, and he disappeared. Left a note, "I'm in trouble? Whatever gave you that impression, Gibbon?" The man behind the mask fell to his knees. "The fact you're being so nice, Hokage-sama." She got up from the desk and walked over to the quietly sobbing man, and gave him a pat on the shoulder. Then she whispered something into his ear. 2 seconds later he was gone, and his footsteps could be heard bounding away very quickly indeed. Tsunade turned to Naruto again. "How did you do it?" "Hinged into a pillow to escape the bonds, hinged out of it, and knocked him out with one of his kunai. I then left the note of apology, and went back to my apartment to obtain proper clothing. I will return the hospital gown when convenient." Shizen began quietly scanning him with a diagnostic jutsu, which Naruto made no attempt to stop. Tsunade realized how much smaller he was without the cloak. He just looked so insignificant and quiet. "I commend the escape. A solid hinge is advanced and difficult, but never do that again. If I want you in hospital, you will remain there." "Yes, Hokage-sama." She sat back in her chair and spun round a couple of times. "Now, given your summon's testimony, we can verify that you were not siding with Uchiha Sasuke. However, doubts still remain over the other death you caused. I want answers. I did not mean to kill him. What was his name? Not mine to tell. Now Shizen has read your reports. What was the gist of them regarding this incident?" Shizen nodded as gave the response she had decided upon. That he fired accidentally after Sasuke had inflicted mortal damage. "How did he word it?" Shizen sighed. "Much more poetically and with more soul." "You haven't memorized it like the rest of the report?" Shizen spluttered a little and turned to hide her blush. Diagnostic completed. "Relax. I'm sure you'll have it down in a week." Now, from any other shinobi under my command, I'd believe that. Seeing a squad mate killed brutally, watching helpless from the sideline. I've seen it, I've been there. You feel helpless and you don't think, and everything goes wrong. Panic is something that affects everyone. She paused to look him in the eye. "But you are different. You're always thinking and planning, so what happened?" "I didn't think or plan." "Really?" His face was contorted a little in confusion and sadness. She could see it. Maybe he wasn't so damaged. "Yes, interesting. You realize I'm going to need to have a Yamanaka examine your memory at some stage, right?" Naruto paled a little. Without the hood his expressions were far more visible. "Or will there be a problem with that order?" "Yes." Naruto fought himself to stop trembling. He was going to defy another order. He had to. He couldn't let them know the truth he had realized. Which is, my memories of the incident are likely to be incomplete, or incompatible with a mind walk exercise. Tsunade raised an eyebrow. "Shizen? Is there anything in his report which might be considered incompatible? Any serious physical trauma?" "Nothing in the report, Tsunade-sama." "Well, that's the only thing they don't like going near, so what prevents it?" "The report is incomplete. I didn't have time to finish it." Tsunade drummed her fingers on the desk as she thought. "Finish it verbally." "I don't care about spoilers." "Well, upon my escape I had reached the border when I received confirmation of the kill via memory. Then, he was shaking again. Shizen guided him to a chair as he spoke. "Then something bad happened. I don't know what it was." He was still shaking, his hand twitching as he fought involuntary movement. "Unfortunately, you didn't hide pain from medics that easily." Shizen caught it first. "Your side is in pain, left side about stomach height." "What's wrong?" "Nothing." Shizen gave him a look that would have stopped Guy from training. "Lie to me and I'll sedate you to find out." "Show me your side." Tsunade was content to watch her protege examine his side for a moment. "His skin in the affected area is warm to the touch. I think it's a part of the chakra restriction seal." "How warm?" "A few degrees or so. The diagnostic is registering it as nothing but odd nerve stimulation." Naruto grit his teeth and tuned out the medical discussion as he focused on anything to take away from the realization. He found the face in his memory and focused. The pain began to ebb. Shizen noticed that. "It's going away." It seems stress or memory activated, most likely a sympathetic response to a mental trauma. Tsunade drummed her fingers on the desk more vigorously, pausing only when she realized her fingers were leaving dents in the reinforced wood. "Naruto, please return to your apartment and await further orders. I will send someone with your belongings." "Yes, Hokage-sama." He was out of the window in moments, and streaking through the rooftops. Shizen turned to her mentor with a worried expression. "Is that wise? Keeping him constrained is going to make his problems worse, not better. We cannot force him to remember just yet. I suspect he'll deal with it soon enough. I suspect that Orochimaru tortured him for some time." contact Jiraiya as soon as possible, and get him back here. The more we can open him up verbally, the easier our job of working out what is wrong with him. I understand, but his condition is unique. Too unique, dangerously so. He's insane shizen, but he's treatable. Right now he's merely insane and not a psychopathic wreck like a lot of other mental cases we get. He won't go and massacre civilians who he thinks are enemy shinobi. He will keep his pain inside because he can. I'll send on him some mission, although he's going with Talon's squad. He'll be comfortable, and if needed he can be taken down. She stared out over the city where he would now be moving through, hidden and silent. She briefly wondered whether or not she was making a mistake. He got into the house and fought the urge from his fingers to form hand seals. He was safe. He dropped the hinge that had carried him along the rooftops. He nearly collapsed onto the bed in the corner, ignoring the torn curtain and broken window for a few moments. There was broken glass on his floor and dust was everywhere. He fought the urge to cough at some of it. He felt like curling up and finding somewhere like his hole in the fortress. He felt it was home, it had been for so long. His and his only. This place was too big. He breathed again. He was safe here. At worst he could hinge if anyone found him. His room was dirty, and he could clean it. He considered putting a genjutsu over the window before realizing that would alert other shinobi to his presence. Finally he gave up and did collapse onto the bed and into a dark and restless sleep. The root teams spread throughout the base. They knew where Orochimaru was, and now the biggest strike team assembled since the disaster in AIM was moving through his base on an extermination mission. 5 teams, 15 well-skilled and emotionally blunted soldiers moving with brutal efficiency. But they certainly weren't as stealthy as Naruto had been, and Sensor Nin would capable of picking them up once they got within. They breached the entrances to the base and moved in quickly and quietly. They split up to cover more tunnels, then hell broke loose in the base. Teams that had been moving down seemingly deserted corridors found themselves assaulted by waves of shinobi under Orochimaru's command. But Root Elite were tough. The confined spaces made Katan Jutsu incredibly valuable, and sound shinobi were burned back repeatedly by the specialists on each team. The lesser grunts died fiery deaths, their robes and flesh catching fire in the enclosed spaces. Water jutsu used to counter the attacks soon led to the tunnels being flooded. The battle took on a whole new dimension. The 3 root teams which had a lightning jutsu specialist had the easiest time, as anyone who stayed in the conductive water soon found themselves on the end of a swift frying, and so the battle took to the walls and ceiling between everyone. Hardened steel blades clashed as the root teams showed their prowess. The defenders pulled back, the water in the tunnels now red with blood of slain Odo shinobi who could not match up to the ruthless killers that Root produced. Then things started to go awry for the root teams. The first team was pushing forwards through the weakened resistance, heading deeper into the base to try and find their target when the corridor sealed itself in bone. Then the spikes came and the root team was no more. Another team got bogged down in seemingly endless attacks from grunts. Whilst they would win the kill count, they were stuck fast under a growing wall of bodies. Team 3 found themselves attacked by a smaller team of much more elite ninja, and were separated to fight their own fights. One man found himself against an angry shape-shifting youth with orange skin. He fought bravely before being obliterated in a blast of chakra. Another found himself against a swordsman, and they dueled down corridors. Eventually he found his mark and chopped his head off, only to turn into a wicked scything blow from the youth as he reformed from the water. The third had it worst, and became one of Kabuto's test subjects after a quick fight. He struggled as Odo shinobi overwhelmed him and dragged him away at Kabuto's command. Still, that left 2 teams on target. 6 highly trained operatives stormed into the deepest chambers in the base. They found themselves in what appeared to be a private medical ward. The sickly man on the bed struggled to sit upright, keeping his face away from the light. Kabuto? The bed was hit by a storm of different jutsu at the same time. Fire met water and became scalding steam, which wind accelerated and lightning crackled around. The bed, the equipment around it, and a few feet of stone were broken very quickly into a rapidly expanding storm of dirt and rubble. The 6 men fanned out into the dust to find proof the target was dead. No notions of a guarantee were in the minds of such men. Then they started to die. The first man went with a yelp of surprise which ended in a loud crunch and an outward spray or something wet and warm. Then there was mayhem once more and more of them died in similarly painful ways. The last root shinobi began to retreat towards the door when something terrifying rose before him. He was prepared, and fear did not cross his mind. He was not afraid to die. He made the hand signs as the distorted snake face in front of him curled into a cruel smile that knew it was invulnerable. His fingers formed the last signs and he thrust them towards his own stomach, intent on activating the four-pronged seal and sealed the snake before him in his own body. His arm stopped just before he hit his stomach. The snake still reared in front of him. Then the arm fell to the ground in a spray of blood, before the root shinobi was sent flying into another wall with a crack and lay very still. Orochimaru's true form seemed puzzled until a man pinned it to the wall. The cloak was long, and covered his entire body as the figure held Orochimaru in place. The serpentine body thrashed as it tried to get free. "Hello again, Orochimaru." The serpentine body thrashed harder, desperate to escape the man's clutches. "You! Why are you here?" The darkness and dusty rubble hid the man's expression, but what were visible were the eyes. The red burning eyes with the three black pupils that gently turned. "I want some answers, Orochimaru. You're going to give them to me." The curved mouth of the snake curved upwards before the body held by the man turned into an empty husk. The man turned slowly and began to walk down the corridors. He knew that Orochimaru wouldn't run. Even if he did, he could be easily hunted down. No, Orochimaru's lust for the Sharingan would bring him back to attack. He heard a crash from above as his partner continued to sweep up all the forces, root, or Odo that remained above him. Kisame would be enjoying himself greatly. A lot of food for Samehada. He continued to walk down the corridors, his eyes seeing everything despite the darkness. The corridor filled with snakes which he simply blasted away with a fireball as if he were swatting a fly. He caught a glimpse of Orochimaru's white snake form dart around the corner and followed, never once accelerating above a slow walk. Orochimaru coiled on the ceiling of the dark laboratory where he conducted his experiments. Strange fluids bubbled and let off a fine mist which was painful to smell. He waited for his target. He would have the Sharingan, and Itachi was walking into his trap. He smiled as the figure walked into the lab, and held its fingers over its nose. He slithered silently along the ceiling, waiting for the perfect time to strike. After all, one of his more recent experiments was still on a slab in the back. He let Itachi wander about the lab. Every second that Itachi stayed in the room, he would be one step closer to taking his body. Last time he had been foolish and tried to take Itachi by force. Now he was ready. He would leave it until just the right moment to strike. Itachi was still walking calmly through his lab, and was nearing the slab covered by a sheet. The man pulled it back to reveal the body hidden beneath. He dropped around the man and engulfed him in a sea of white snakes which bit and tore at the body he held in place. There was no struggle, although there hadn't been last time. He let the snakes go to reveal the limp body. He almost laughed, but there was no time for that. He needed the body intact and not too injured. Then the body burst into crows and he cursed before he burst into flames of agony. He rolled, but the flames would not stop. He shed his skin once again to escape the man. He looked around for where he had gone, right into the eyes which had changed. They spun this way and that before the world changed. He realized he was back in his original human body. His pale, imperfect body. He was also very much trapped. "Hello, Orochimaru. Nice to see you up to your old tricks, Itachi." "Why?" Another Itachi appeared and stabbed him with a sword. He felt the pain like the sword was made of fire. "Why is my brother dead?" Despite knowing that this would last 72 hours, and that he would likely tell Itachi everything, Orochimaru laughed. "A family visit?" Sasuke was well until just recently. Another sword perfectly aligned to cause maximum internal damage. Despite knowing it was a genjutsu, it hurt like hell. "Who killed him?" "Konoha." A third sword pieced him. He laughed again. Itachi was staring at him from the endless desert of black sand. "Who from Konoha? Tell me." Orochimaru found some brief irony that he was being interrogated for information about someone he had himself interrogated, a boy about Sasuke's age. "Pain is going to take so long to get the answers out of me, Itachi." Itachi reached into his robes and drew out another sword made out of pure fire. Orochimaru's eyes went wide as all the other Itachi who had been stabbing him drew them as well. He had longed for that sword for so long. That sword? Here? The pain was much more intense this time. He started to scream. "Tell me more about him," Orochimaru panted. This felt too real. Normally this much pain blasted someone out of the genjutsu. He was strong. Then he was poisoned. He felt the temperature in the endless genjutsu rise a little. How long had it been? Maybe 5 minutes. How? You and your minions should have been well able to detect such a thing with ease and prevent it. Is Kabuto so weak? Are you so weak? The cruel, mocking but horrifyingly correct judgment dripped from every word. He spent 3 years doing it. 3 years? 3 years. How I still don't know. 3 years is the first time my followers mentioned the ghost. Itachi narrowed his eyes. The desert got hotter again. He felt the sheen of sweat running over him and making it hotter. The blazing swords were closer now, hovering all around his body. The ghost? The mighty Orochimaru brought low by a phantom? Oh, we found him. But it was too late. Kabuto found at least half a dozen components. In the end, his body died a few seconds after his last meal. A neurotoxin his own body made. Itachi considered this. His brother was dead, but he would grieve later. There was something more important, even through the grief. Who was the ghost? Orochimaru suddenly found the heat replaced with arctic cold that literally frozen him. The fiery swords seemed to be taking in heat rather than expelling it. The agony was near overwhelming, even for someone like him, a very special boy. But we only captured a clone. Continue. The cold bit deeper into his soul. He cried out as fast as his brain permitted. His clone lasted 2 days under torture and died on the slab before disappearing. It died and remained intact. That alone marks him out as special. But he had a seal that completely wiped out his chakra presence. And he had another seal. Tell me. The voice was hypnotic, and the pain too intense. He would tell Itachi everything. He's a Jinchuriki, and you know what that means. The temperature returned to normal, and he felt the pain recede a little. Then the illusion unraveled. His serpentine form would not respond to his urges to run. Thoughts of attack were gone. He wanted to run and hide and let the pain disappear. He looked up at Itachi's standing form. Something was running down his face, but it was too dark to be tears. The blood ran from one eye, and what looked like tears from another. Itachi, spare me. The man just looked down at his pitiful form and shook his head. Then the world erupted into black flames, and he screeched as his life was extinguished. Chapter 35, Refraction. Kisame strode down the blood-soaked and battered corridors, following Samahata's lead. The sadness and anger radiating from Itachi was making the sword twitchy. It twisted a little in his grasp and he soothed it a little. Itachi had to be really worked up. He reached the chamber and swung his sword up onto his shoulder. He looked down at the white thing engulfed in black, lightless flames. I never liked him anyway, Itachi. Find out anything? The man turned and strode towards the exit. Kisame adopted his best motherly tone. It wasn't different from his normal voice. Itachi? You know sulking won't help. I have information for Leader Sama. Oh, is it the Nine Tails at last? We didn't even find him last time before all those idiots got in the way and you bailed. Itachi didn't answer as he walked. His mind was in turmoil. His brother was dead, and he was the last Uchiha. Outcast from the home he defended. The last of his kind. Traitor in the midst of traitors and the most dangerous men in the lands. He realized his illness was going to catch him sooner rather than later, and realized that the majority of his plans had come to nothing. He felt the tears beginning to form in his eyes and he blinked them away. He was stronger than this. Even though everything that he had fought for had failed, he would keep going. He would fight on. He had no idea how. He couldn't return to Konoha. He couldn't let the masked man win. He couldn't let Nagato win either. His final victory would come in defying 3 people theirs. Then again, he couldn't lose at anything either. He couldn't just turn on the Akatsuki so quickly though. Kisame was strong enough to fight him on a level par, and the others had unknown strengths. His brain began to plan and think of how he could be most effective. When did he strike? Who did he strike? Kisame felt the sword twitch as Itachi's negative emotions changed a little. The sword still wanted his chakra after all these years. He was always amazed by how hungry it was, even after it was able to devour so much of Kisame's. So it is the Nine Tails then? He recovered his posture and kept walking, facing away from his partner. It is. He's going to be hard to find though. He hid in that base for 3 years. The blue-skinned man let out a long whistle. Interesting. He doesn't sound like a combat specialist though. He won't be much fun for you. Kisame shrugged as they reached daylight again. Itachi turned to the entrance to the base. He didn't want any stain of Orochimaru's organization to remain more than it needed to. This place was to be destroyed and blasted from the earth. Level this place, Kisame, and sink it into the ground. The man cackled as he placed his hands on the ground and focused his water chakra. Itachi felt the ground become a little wet before he looked at the small amount of buildings on the ground level. They were small and fortified, mainly for show as a guard post of some sort. Most of the base was underground anyway. A conventional explosion wouldn't do. He wanted this place to sink without trace. There was some shaking as the earth and rock around the base had water forced into it. Cracks grew under the pressure, solid dirt became thick mud that began to shift and run like rivers. The land of sound had previously been the land of rice fields, and now the long, muddy tracts that made up the majority of the land began to reclaim the land for their own. Thick dark mud slammed down on the weakened area. Slowly the buildings began to sink before the falling inwards. The earth opened and swallowed the buildings whole, and the crash of them falling on the base below echoed through the muddy plains around them. The soft rumbles of tunnels and chambers below collapsing under the water echoed deeply through the earth. Anyone left alive and there wasn't any longer. Water flooded into the sinkhole, forming a small, brown lake in the middle of the land. Itachi considered everything that Orochimaru must have had in there. The secret techniques and science now lost under mud and water. He smiled as both sides were denied more weapons. He smiled as he took the first step of his plan. Tsunade let the words sink into the poor girl who she'd just given the mission to. She tried to keep a soft, supporting face over the iron will that was going to impose the order. Hinata looked into her Hokage's eyes for a sign that she was joking about this, and found none. This hadn't been what she had been expecting. Then again, she didn't know what she had been. A few days ago, this would have been her handing in her head plate and resigning her commission as a chunin. How she had gained that rank was beyond her. She barely remembered the exams. Now she had a new mission of a higher rank than any she had participated in before, and she was alone in it. What was worse was that it was so simple for her that she couldn't refuse and give up her shinobi profession. Hokage-sama, I just need to talk to him as a therapist. She was a little too shocked to be nervous about this. Yes, Hinata. 2 1-hour sessions a week, and the possibility of an external mission or 2 to keep you in shape and give you things to talk about with him, as well as keeping you in touch with Shino and Kiba more. You will continue training however you see fit. She considered the way things were and looked out of the window in the direction of the training grounds and monument. Can I would like to think it over somewhere? Of course. This is a high-ranking mission and one you should think about. I would rather have you than someone else. She nodded. She needed this moment once again. Her steps took her gently out of the tower and towards the training grounds. She nodded gently towards anyone who bade her welcome, but moved quietly towards her destination. The village thinned out into the training's grounds, and she headed for one in particular. She used to hide just there, and she'd watch him train from there. She didn't bother trying to forget, she just walked on. She was safe here. She didn't need to think to navigate to her destination, and she found the rock and her place of solitude. She wasn't the only one who did this. Several times she had seen other shinobi here. She realized her spot was taken by another figure she didn't recognize for a few moments. Then she dived silently behind another rock when she did. Him. Why here? Why now? She trembled with anger she knew she couldn't hold on to. He was here for the same reason. He didn't deserve to be. She needed this time. She turned from behind the rock and raised her voice, telling him to go. Nothing happened. Then she realized she hadn't moved a muscle. She couldn't confront him. Not now, not like this, not. Hinata? His voice. It sounded better than it had before when she had found him. What had she been thinking? Why had she rushed him back without thought like nothing had mattered? His voice was less sure than before. She looked up into his face. His hood was down, and his hair had grown out a little. His expression was unreadable. She fought the urge to run and tried to form words. Naruto. The silence was total, absorbing all other sound. He spoke first. I'm sorry. Well, she hadn't been expecting that. She realized that him saying it had actually made her feel angry. She tried to bite it back. Had Tsunade-sama known he would be here? For what? He pondered this for a moment. Every second he did made her temper rise within her a little more. For what happened? I made a mistake. A mistake? He looked at the monument, and then down at the earth. I didn't mean to shoot him. She didn't look at him. She realized she was trembling with the anger she'd kept inside. I never learned his name. Something within her snapped, and the Juken strike jabbed out, her finger glowing gently with the chakra. He ducked under it. She fought the urge to send more. It had never been so strong. She'd pushed the feeling down when her father had been harsh, but there was nothing to really hold it back here. I did not mean to offend you, but she decided another few attempts at hitting him were deserved. He kept dodging, but eventually one caught him, and he stumbled backwards. She stalked over him, her arms wanting to strike him to oblivion and back whilst she could. Then she realized what she had done, and the trembling started for another reason. She quickly knelt down and undid her damage. He scrambled back quickly, expecting more strikes. Naruto, I did not mean to hurt you. She sat, unable to form the right words. So did he. She gave up and just spoke her mind. I wish to be alone. Please leave. I understand. He left. Then she realized what he had said, and suddenly he made a little bit more sense. She turned on her Byakugan to see if he was gone. He had, or he was hiding so well she couldn't tell. Either way, she felt alone enough. She knelt in front of the monument, and a finger traced its way to the name with practiced ease. She'd done this so many times over the last 3 years that the physical actions were routine. She had remembered him. She knew she hadn't been the only one. She'd shied away from visits when she'd seen Kakashi around. She'd seen Lady Tsunade here too. Even Sakura and some of the other genin once or twice. She'd been here the most though. She closed her eyes and rested by the memorial stone. He'd been a lot to her, but she'd never really gotten close to him. He had definitely been a friend to her, and her to him. She'd never had the courage to talk to him more, and chided herself every time she did this. Every time she remembered him and thought about how she never got to say goodbye. Then Sasuke had left, and everyone had disappeared and come back hurt. He had come back dead. The tears had fallen for a long time. Then nearly 3 years later she'd needed saving on a mission when she hadn't tried to dodge a blade. She owed Shino her life because she hadn't cared. Then she had been about to quit, and then he had returned. 2 very prominent he's, each with an effect on her life. Both had nearly killed her by this point, in very different ways. And now she had to talk to one about how he'd killed the other. How had it come to this? What would he have done? He would have kept going and never given up until the mission was complete. He'd have continued on to the death. That was something he could never achieve. Naruto held his breath and covered his mouth with his cloak as the gas began to fill his room. Whoever was doing it to his apartment obviously wanted his attention and knew he was home. He briefly considered the effect of his still unrepaired window on the ventilation of the gas before he decided it wasn't his concern. He just needed to take them out. Whoever this was, he had a strong suspicion it was Talon, was trying something that wouldn't work on him. He waited until he heard the slightest noise and dropped a sleep bomb into his apartment from above, holding himself to the ceiling with ease. There was the satisfying noise of a karawimi with something outside. The object dropped onto his floor with a nice thump on the floorboards. He waited for the second attempt. Then he heard the sound of a scuffle outside. There were faint voices too. "Come on, Hare!" "No. Pig! Let go! Enough, just let us handle this, Talon. I want my vengeance, damn it." So it was Talon. From what he could surmise, Hare and Pig were going to deny him the chance to try and outwit Naruto. Eventually, something flew through his window. The kunai had a simple white piece of cloth tied to it. A traditional symbol of surrender. He dropped out of the window to meet the ANBU team outside. Talon was restrained with ninja wire and Naruto suspected his expression was one of deep unhappiness. He wished deeply to see the man's face to confirm his suspicions. Hare stepped forward first. "Naruto, there's a mission for you with us." "Good to see you alive and well." Pig stepped forwards and nearly crushed him in a bear hug. The much larger man's grip was restricting his grip. He remembered what hugs were, and this certainly had to come under a new type of hug. This was not a normal hug. It was meaningful, but overly tight. His ribs felt a bit bruised. "We thought you were dead for sure. But you came back and then you sleep-bombed Talon. That was hilarious for us to find." Talon shifted against his bonds. "I'll get you for that, you know. But it is good to see you. What Pig didn't tell you was that he bet against your return." Pig rubbed the back of his head. "Best bet I ever lost." Talon merely shrugged and split the wires with a kunai before standing up and flexing his arms. Hare sighed. "We could have retrieved that for later use, you know." Talon grinned. "And miss a chance to practice my chakra manipulation to cut the wire like butter?" "Always training, Hare. Always training. That's why I'm a captain and you're not." Hare placed a hand on his mask in despair. Talon flexed his muscles for no reason. "Right then, brief on the road like always, boys. Try to keep up, Naruto. I'm sure you'll have some new stuff to show us." Then the ANBU were moving and Naruto was moving after them as fast as he could. His slightly older frame pushed him forwards a little faster, and he pushed chakra into his limbs to keep the speed up. He wasn't much taller. Malnutrition in Orochimaru's base had stunted his growth. He was slightly taller, but not that much. He was definitely short. That said, his frame was wiry and flexible, and surprisingly powerful for its size. He pushed on after the black-clad figures as they bounded northwest. That meant they were going to the border with IWA. Talon's voice crackled through his earpiece, and there was a sudden feeling of relief in his body. Talon could keep in contact even if he was alone at points. He wouldn't have to be alone on the mission at all times. He started to listen to the briefing. "Right, boys, we're going to rock, in rock country. We're going to IWA." Hare's sigh was easily heard as the poor puns began. Since Tsunade bit the dust a few years ago because someone unleashed a tailed beast on them, Naruto felt that comment was targeted somehow. We know things have got a little bit tense. We're just going out to see if any large forces are building up in IWA. Don't get found, don't leave evidence. Clear? There was a chorus of assents. Good. No going solo unless it's a kick-ass solo. What the hell are you on about, Talon? There was a snort. He saw Talon shake his head gently. None of you appreciate rock music enough. Pig's retort was quick. That new stuff with guitars, are they called? The weird ones with 6 strings. Yes. Guitars are amazing. Just because they're not the traditional stuff you're used to, Pig. One day you'll see. Rock is here to stay. Sure, Talon. Sure. The team made haste for the border and was shifting northwards to go through grass. That would be fine. Both Konoha and IWA had non-aggression treaties with the minor nation. Military access to it was, whilst frowned upon officially, ignored in general. Nobody wanted to annoy two powerful and increasingly twitchy nations after all. The trees and thick forests of the Firelands began to gently shift to different types of tree, smaller and more shrubby. The ANBU team plowed ahead regardless and were soon deep into grass territory. Naruto was surprised by how few patrols they even came close to encountering. In fact, if his judgment was right, patrols moved distinctly out of the way of all possible threats. Grass territory wasn't all that interesting, and soon the brush was thinning out and the landscape of IWA came into view. Harsh barren steppes, large and rocky, stretched out as far as he could see. His teammates didn't seem all that bothered by it. He realized they'd probably done this a dozen times before. He followed them into the territory with all his usual skill and grace. Chapter 36: Fire and Steam and Smoke. Night began to fall, and the team found a small cave opening to duck into. Naruto found this to be somewhat too risky and decided to question the decision. Given IWA shinobi usually prefer Doton Jutsu, wouldn't it be unwise to go into such a cave? If discovered, we would be at a severe disadvantage. Talon's posture changed, and Naruto thought it meant he was grinning. All his old observations about how people did things were hidden somewhere in his mind, long unused by years in hiding. They were slowly coming back into use for him. Well, then we don't get found, do we? That was that then. He was good at not getting found. He followed them into the cave as the sun ducked behind a step and darkness descended more thoroughly. No fire was lit, nobody needed it, and it was too much of a risk in the cave. It wasn't deep enough to disguise properly. The ANBU settled down somewhere that was comfortable enough for themselves, and went into ANBU crash sleep mode. It was the perfect mode for resting whilst being aware enough to respond fast. Naruto didn't bother sleeping and kept watch out of the entrance, bow primed and ready for action. He heard Talon slide over next to him. So, what was it like? What was what like? The man's voice was a low whisper. Those years. I know you don't want to talk about it, but I have to know. How did you manage it? Food? Drink? Other necessaries? He tried to recall only the most basic of information. He wanted to tell him everything, and he could have. But it wasn't the right time. I stole food from the kitchens or ate when I was disguised as a cook. Some days I didn't eat, because of the patrols. Talon nodded slightly. He knew about days when you didn't eat, but they were rare for ANBU. Stealing food was slightly less common, but over 3 years? For a mission you got called up for at very short notice? Drink I got from a small water source where I made my home base. It was enough. Where was your home base? A small gap in the rock by a ventilation shaft. That was interesting, at least. The only place he could find, and he found it. Luck, but used to the full. Those were the only necessities other than intelligence gathering, which I did with care. Talon considered asking about going to the toilet, and other such things. He decided against it. He didn't want to push Naruto too far. Sounds like you had a tough time. It had challenges I was able to overcome. Talon placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder. The young man didn't turn from his watch. If you need to talk to people, we're always here, Naruto. Anko will be as well. I'm sure Hokage-sama will find you someone to talk to. The boy was silent for a few moments until he removed the hand and crept a little back into the cave to sleep. Thank you, Talon-san. No problem. He found a comfy enough spot and went to sleep. Naruto merely kept watch. His summons could alert him to enemy presence easily enough if needed. What he wanted to watch was the world around him. The cloudless night was dark under the new moon. The only lights Naruto could see were those of the stars in the sky. The full glory of the heavens was displayed in all its majesty before him. He could not only see a few stars, like you got in the cities and near the towns, or underground, like he had been. The sky, the open sky before him. He realized how much he missed it. He saw the stars up above, and wondered what they were. They couldn't just be spots of light in the sky. They had to be something more. For all his shinobi knowledge, an education into people and things that didn't have practical use was lacking. His keen eye took in the bands of lighter materials that stretched through the sky. What were they? How did it work and why? He pondered all of these things as he kept watch through the night. The patrol lasted for 3 days without any kind of incident. No IWA forces were building on the border, and there was no sign of any forces whatsoever. The rocky steppes were peaceful and without any real danger. The rest of the ANBU seemed satisfied that nothing was going on, and they continued to move to the most remote point they would reach into the IWA lands. Then Naruto felt the tremor of chakra, and judging by the reaction of the others, so had they. Pig stared in its direction. You guys felt that as well, right? That was insane. Something big is going down. Talon turned to Naruto. Can you see what is going on there? The Byakugan had already been on when the blast of chakra occurred, and Naruto could see what looked like a glow coming from a valley a mile away. He was at the limits of his vision just looking at it, and the glow was very strong. No, there's too much chakra. The jutsu used is large. Talon thought for a moment. We need to check this out. It could be an IWA Jinchuriki, and information on them is well prized. Don't get seen, and if you do, run like hell to Konoha. The team spread out to get more vision on the target, Naruto taking the most circuitous route. His thin frame was more powerful than before as his recovery continued, and he ran low to the ground from cover to cover. He already had the distraction genjutsu on himself. The amount of chakra being used ahead was entirely staggering. It was similar to the levels he had briefly seen when the One-Tails had reformed. It had to be another person like him. He suddenly felt the need to be there with them and talk to them. Then there was another burst of chakra that was very different. That meant there were at least 2 people of high power there. That meant someone was fighting him? Or his training was more extreme than anything he had ever encountered. He felt excited. He ran forwards faster and began to climb the slope as fast as he could whilst maintaining a basic level of stealth. He was near the top. His Byakugan could only see a seething mass of chakra in the valley on the other side. He realized that there could be any number of figures hidden in that chakra and slowed down a little. Whilst it was unlikely that there was anyone in that battle other than the 2 powerful figures, it was possible. He peered over the lip into a valley of heat and steam. Then there was lava spreading outwards and more water meeting it. An entire mountain was slowly getting built in the middle of the valley as water met fire. 2 people were moving very, very fast at the bottom of the valley. He could see the chakra signatures. There were 3. 2 were moving together, with one moving around the other. They were the same signature. Twins? No, that wasn't it. It was likely a clone of some sort. The other was burning bright red chakra into his vision like a small sun. It was a man encased in chakra and spewing forth more. The Jinchuriki. He realized that this was not a fight to get involved in. It was not his fight, or his orders to be in the fight. The amount of swirling chakra was almost hypnotic. The noise, however, was cataclysmic. He could barely hear anything over the thunder of the battle, and that worried him. He was nearly blind and deaf to all threats that could sneak up on him. Then again, they were blind to him. He snuck along the top edge as the battle continued to rage below. It seemed there was less lava around. Then the steam flowed upwards. He went to ground. The hurricane-like wind slammed over him and ripped up smaller rocks and trees and flung them out of the valley. His radio became a wash of static that he tuned out, and he stayed flat behind a small ridge until things died down. Then he peered up after a few seconds and was hit by the second shockwave as the beast below roared. It was a 4-tailed monkey, taller than a house and wider as well. 2 giant fists slammed onto the ground with such force that it became molten and cracked. With the steam and lava cleared, its opponent became clear. A man with blue skin stood before it holding a large blade that gently twitched. That was the same chakra signature of the man. That meant the sword was definitely not normal, and likely alive. He scanned for other figures and saw 4. That was a potential problem. There were only 3 others on his team, and he couldn't discern which was which with this much residual chakra in the air. He couldn't risk drawing attention to himself, so stayed put. The battle below had taken on a less visible but somehow more intense phase. The man with the sword was hurting the beast with every swing of his weapon, and he could see why. Its chakra was being siphoned out into the sword with every hit. That was certainly a good weapon to have, even if it was too large and out of his depth for Naruto to even consider using. The beast was also shedding a fair amount of blood from a lot of light, gashed wounds. Its glow was getting weaker as it tried to strike the elusive man again and again, but it was too slow. The man was reading it and blocking it in. He wondered why the beast didn't just flee. He checked his surroundings again, One of the figures was closer, but not enough to really concern him. He realized the great monkey was faltering as it spread lava once more over the valley floor. The man used water to cool some and danced around the large fists that tried to sweat into a burning death. He realized the man with the sword was going to win. The Jinchuriki had overcommitted himself to the fight, and only now saw that it wasn't going his way. His attempts to flee saw him flattened by a tidal wave of water that sent steam rising into the valley, and the body of the beast slammed hard into the rock face. Naruto flattened himself further as the apocalyptic sound died down. He checked his surroundings again. There was a figure not 10 meters from him. His headset was still nothing but static. He crawled back silently and readied his bow, throwing up his distraction genjutsu. The battle in the valley was forgotten as he prepared to fire. He remembered the last shot he had fired and nearly twitched in his aim. That was then, this was now. He could hit. He would hit if he knew the man wasn't an ANBU. He knew now it wasn't Pig, the size was too small. He watched the walk. It was slow and meticulous, as if nothing was happening. It was almost casual to the eye. It wasn't hair either. But was it Talon? The figure was 5 meters away and the steam was so thick he still couldn't tell. The smell of sulfurous lava crept up out of the valley from the amount of cooling volcanic rock. The seconds felt tense. Was it Talon or not? Yes, and he was safe. No, and he fired and took the figure's head off. It walked like Talon certainly. The figure got closer and he saw the loose robe surrounding the figure and fired before the figure split apart into crows. Naruto realized that there were now several figures around him, and he was very much alone with very few places to hide. He put another bolt into the crossbow, and created 2 shadow clones to run in opposite directions. He shrunk back deeper into the rocks, watching for the figure. The chakra haze was weaker here, and he could just see his clones moving out beyond his sight range. He expected one of them to die, and the other to make it round to Talon. People didn't expect 2 decoys with no real one. Then both sets of memories came back to him in a flash. His attacker had clones of his own, and he had a Sharingan Naruto had ever seen before. There was only one person that could be, and Naruto's mind whirred even further into overdrive. There was no time for fear. He would flee as quickly as possible, and fight what little he could if he needed to. He drew the Tonto blade and tightened the crossbow around his back. Speed would be important now. His bow was not a fast weapon. He prepared to deactivate the outer reaches of his restriction seal to use more chakra for speed. Then he looked out with his Byakugan and saw the eyes of the man ahead of him light up before the world changed. This was not the valley. He pulsed his chakra to no effect. The voice came from everywhere. Welcome to Tsukatoyumi. There is no escape for the next 72 hours. Then the air in his lungs was punched clean out of him, and he fell onto freezing black sand. A figure stood over him, eyes glowing bright red like some unholy fire. The voice was slow, deep and deliberate, resonating in the subsonic, and somehow chilling his very soul. Who are you, little ghost? He was picked up, and found himself unable to resist the man's efforts at all. His muscles were dead and he couldn't move. The man knew his moniker, if not his name. If anything that was more dangerous. He wouldn't answer though. The man threw him into the air and suddenly he was tied to something, arms outstretched and being pulled. His arms didn't like the feeling at all. Answer me and this can hurt less. I don't know enough about you to want to kill you just yet. Itachi paced around him, and somehow he was able to turn and face him at all times despite being tied still. It was disorientating. He was in pain, but he'd suffered worse. The root torture teams had inflicted worse than this in his training. Orochimaru and his men worse still. He wouldn't be made to talk by that. 3 years ago I returned to Konoha very briefly in search of the 4th Hokage's legacy. I came in search of a Jinchuriki that held the 9-tailed beast, and unfortunately it was too early for such a search. I was found and left to avoid fruitless conflict, but not before catching up with some old friends. He kept pacing. The thing he was tied to was both boiling and freezing at once. That was a neat trick. There was no sign of a Jinchuriki though. By that time, there should have been a 13-year-old running around with the beast sealed into him, or her, being scorned and hated by everyone. At least, that is the usual fate of the Jinchuriki. Yet after the attack, no baby was guarded. Nobody paid any attention to the sudden disappearance of a tailed beast at all. In fact, the official word was that the beast had been defeated by the 4th at the cost of his life. How noble. How brave. The people ate it up because it's a story people wanted to believe. It is only human of them. They would prefer to know their hero succeeded in death rather than only delayed the inevitable. He stopped and sat down on a stone throne that had appeared behind him. Yet you can't kill a tailed beast, At least not in the traditional sense. Actually, now that I see your equipment, you might know this already. You killed the Tsunade Jinchuriki. I sense it. Lady Tsunade told you it would reform. Interestingly, a lot of people knew that and wondered what had actually happened. A lot of those questioners died in the months following the attacks and accidents, whilst traveling or on missions. That was odd as well. Those then did afterwards suddenly kept it very much to themselves so as not to fall prey to the curse. So when the organization I work for decided to search for all the beasts, the most powerful of them all appears not to exist as a Jinchuriki. So that Jinchuriki must be hidden. Who hides a weapon like that? Who can hide a weapon like that? He tilted his head sideways to observe Naruto. Even Zetsu couldn't find it. The finest sensor in the world unable to find a giant chakra entity. Impossible. Any Jinchuriki should stand out like a beacon to him. So where was he? The man leant back inside. Naruto wondered whether or not he was actually going to be tortured or just talked at. Even so, it was interesting enough and far more pleasant than being hurt. Then a couple of weeks ago, one of our little people in Orochimaru's main hideout tells us about someone who infiltrated his hideout and killed my brother. Poisoned. The man leant forwards, the red eyes somehow becoming more intense and burning even brighter. It was like something ripping into his soul. He wasn't going to be intimidated by something like that though. At first I thought such a thing was impossible. Not only is such a hideout near impossible to locate and infiltrate for even a day, let alone the length of time he had to have been there. Nearly 3 years. That was incredible in itself, but to then poison someone in that place? To poison a snake summoner who is the apprentice to a man who comes up with deadly poisons and another man who is probably the second most brilliant medic in the entire world? That was what caught my attention. Nobody should be capable of that. Nobody would dare conceive of it being possible. The man stood, a short katana blade in his hand, held facing the ground. The sky seemed to be made of fire now, and he felt like his hair was on fire. The air was acrid and sulphurous, and he felt like he was choking on it. So I paid my old partner a visit. It turned out he had finally captured a clone of the person who had infiltrated and undone him. He told me some interesting information. Naruto didn't blink as the katana made a few neat cuts. His shirt fell away in tatters and burst into smoke and crows as it left. That made for interesting watching, but the man now knew more than he wanted. The man played the tip of the katana on the spiral that adorned his stomach. Apparently the boy in question had a large amount of seal matrices on his body. A very large, very strong, 8-pronged seal that could only have been put there by a master as skilled as the 4th Hokage. The tip moved along to the outside seal, blocky and built like a fortress, and some other seals which nearly completely blocked his chakra down to minimal levels. What he didn't mention was this. He indicated the memory-eating seal, and it's been used, hasn't it? That is, abhorrent. Yet I am not here to judge your failure. What could drive you to such lengths, I wonder? What scares someone who spends 3 years in a rat hole in the base of a missing knee that much? What causes fear in the fearless one? Apparently you didn't even say anything on the torture slab beyond your serial number. He walked back to the plain throne and sat, cocking his head. Well, you are a mystery, aren't you? I must say I was fortunate to find you in the haze of chakra. You're good at hiding, but not good enough. My eyes strip away a lot of the illusion and give you a slightly different glow in the light. Your eye too. I cannot fault you for being found by me. I am one of a small number of people skilled enough to notice you. That you should be proud of. Naruto tried to shrug but still couldn't move. So this was Itachi Uchiha. This was the most feared missing nin Konoha had to offer. Apparently he liked to talk a lot and pose a lot of questions. Yet he felt a bizarre kinship with the man. So now I find my brother's killer is someone I have to capture for my organization. If my partner were not otherwise engaged, you would have your limbs cut off and be carried away nearly dead. Naruto showed no reaction. There had to be a way to escape the genjutsu. If you think there's a way out of this jutsu, there is. Either I stop it, I die, or 72 hours pass. You cannot break it. Your mind and senses are under my control. I could undo the memory-eating seal or have you kill yourself. I've done the latter before. That meant he just had to last 72 hours. That was as long as Orochimaru and his men had done before killing him. He could last this. You think you can last this? Your outermost thoughts are not hidden from me, although I would require more effort to get deeper than that. That was getting annoying. I can put you through more pain than Orochimaru could in an instant with a flick of my mind. There was a moment of total agony that drew a cry from Naruto. That was bad. That was very bad. Still, he was sure it could be worse. It could very much well be. Tell me, why did you kill my brother? He would not yield under torture. He prepared himself for more pain. I don't want to break you to get the information out of you. Tell me the truth and this can go without pain. I just want an answer to that question. He knew how to be interrogated. Naruto. Serial number 002953. Rank Chunin. Itachi just sighed and the agony returned for 10 seconds. Naruto counted through the growl of pain he let out. Don't just give me that. Give me an actual answer. I could rip it out of your head, you know. I'm no specialist, so not much will be left of use. Just give me the answers and this can end. His voice was quickly becoming hypnotic, and he blanked it out with a furious effort. He still had some control. Itachi looked a little surprised, and he took some solace that he could resist. You are stronger than you let on, but you cannot last. So far I haven't been trying properly. Fighting like a rat in a corner, the man was so calm and so in control. Naruto found himself feeling a pang of respect towards him. This was how Naruto would have hoped to carry out in Porashin. Calm, collected, objective and efficient. The agony doubled for a full minute. The man was standing, holding the katana outstretched, the tip touching the memory-eating seal. Tell me or I unleash the one thing you fear, something that terrifies you. He couldn't face that yet. He wasn't ready. Itachi relaxed into the throne again. Now, why did you kill my brother? It was my mission. Itachi tilted his head to the other side. No, it wasn't. You think it was, but it wasn't. You've fooled yourself. Let's go back, shall we? The memories are already in your mind. Let's take a look again, shall we? The world swam again and there was rain. Itachi floated above the valley on his stone throne as he watched the scene. It was all from his perspective, and that was disorienting. He was behind his own eyes with no control, knowing what he was going to do. He tried to force his finger back but couldn't. He saw the crossbow quarrel hit Baka and he winced. He didn't like this memory at all, but he'd kept it. He'd relived it and dreamed it before, but never this vividly. He saw himself take one fleeting glimpse back before plowing onwards. The world faded again. That was interesting. You kept going on the mission when any other shinobi would have stopped. If you'd gone back then you would be better off perhaps? No. I had to complete the mission, making any required sacrifices, even unto death, if I had to. Itachi smiled a little. I wonder if it will ever come to that. Your life or your mission. Although, Itachi paused as he considered something. I think you'll figure it out for yourself. Eventually you'll find the void in your memory and wonder. I believe the seal will undo itself when you want to remember badly enough, and I think I know what you'll see. Itachi stood and stretched. But back to the matter at hand. Why did you carry on? Certainly not duty, your mind was in chaos. That memory. Yes. You were torn until you found your hidey hole in the base. So why keep going? It is my purpose. Purpose to what? Itachi snapped, turning to face him with fiery eyes again. He was again taller, far away and near and small and fire and smoke. He was all around and nowhere. Naruto's sense struggled to keep up. Purpose to do missions. Purpose to kill. No, the agony flared up again. As it finished he panted and hung from where Itachi had him bound with his mind. You were not doing it simply out of duty. There was something more driving you. Think deep and find the answer before my patience runs dry. His voice was a snarl now. The angry snarl of a wolf preparing to lunge and rip and tear until nothing was left. He thought deeply as Itachi seemed to prowl around him. Why had he felt driven? What had he felt when the answer came to him? A word he had heard and knew the definition of but not the feeling. Redemption. The world calmed and Itachi was there in his throne, head tilted gently to one side with a small smile on his face. Good. The slight constant pain stopped. He found himself standing opposite Itachi in a void-like environment. The color wasn't white, but it wasn't anything else. It was colorlessness and indescribable. He was standing on nothingness that stretched for eternity. Now we can talk more civilly. I do not wish to capture you, even though that is my purpose. My associate knows nothing of this, nor ever will. Your team will not find me. Do not get them to look. This conversation is between us. You will speak nothing of it to anyone. Naruto nodded warily. One day I will end you, Naruto. Of that much you can be assured. For the moment, consider me your ally. Here is what I am going to do. Naruto listened as Itachi explained his part. Chapter 37 Breaking Point. Rain began to fall on the valley as the last ebbs of the battle faded. Steam coagulated into thick low cloud that dropped into the valley. There was an eerie calm over the valley as it faded to reveal scarred land beneath. The ANBU team regrouped. Naruto found the other three with his eye, and joined them quietly. Hair jumped a little when he saw Naruto. You need to stop being that quiet lion. Naruto saw no reason to, but it was etiquette to lie about such things. Sorry, that was right, wasn't it? Talon shrugged. Well, we need to start tracking them. We do not engage them. We stay far away and find out where they are taking that Jinchuriki. Naruto nodded and activated his Byakugan. He could see the figures moving off in the distance in no particular hurry. Their captive was slung unceremoniously over a shoulder by the swordsman. He moved and the ANBU team followed his tracking. Shadowing was easy enough when his targets were not looking for them. Although what Itachi had told him was troubling, a group of S-rank shinobi were looking for him. Now Itachi knew who he was. At least Itachi was not directly against him for the moment. He ducked into more cover as he followed at close to his maximum range. He checked the sun briefly. They were heading southwards, so could be about to go into grass. Aim, or even the borderlands with Suna. The rock was slowly changing as they followed their prey, and soon storm clouds drew in on the horizon. Their prey was tireless, and so were the ANBU. The rain began to fall and Talon's voice crackled in his headset as Naruto relentlessly followed. Naruto, regroup. They're heading into AIM and following there is a bad idea. AIM is not a nation friendly to intruders. Naruto checked his motion. Surely we need more detail that's simply the nation they operate out of. He heard the sigh into his earpiece. Yes, but that is not our mission scope. This is above our level. We're Black Ops. What level is higher? The sigh was deeper and more frustrated. Politics. We head south into Suna and get back into Konoha as soon as possible. Akatsuki have been identified as a dangerous threat, and so we need to get the info back. Plus IWA just lost a Jinchuriki. Reporting that is part of our mission. Naruto felt compelled to go on but fought it. He wanted to follow and hide and scope for another 3 years. It felt natural now. He nearly moved towards the rain, and stared at the city that was on the edges of his vision. It almost seemed to beckon to him. He could go in, and hide, and maybe he'd find more redemption. He recalled Itachi's words to him. The man's vision and purpose. He had to think logically and leave the place alone. With a final glance, he stopped himself and returned to his team. The winged figure watched him go out of the rain before taking flight. Wings flapped gently to propel her back towards the high towers of AIM's main cities. The intruders had been spotted the instant they had touched the outer reaches of the rain, although it had taken longer to really spot them. The one at the front was elusive. They had left, and she had not needed to engage in conflict with them, which was pleasing. She did not give battle lightly. Still, the fact that Itachi and Kisame had been tracked back to AIM would displease the rest of the group. Now AIM would undergo some investigation from whichever village the shinobi were from. They were probably Konoha shinobi given that Suna barely existed anymore and nobody else had the proximity. The one country where they didn't know where the Jinchuriki was at all. She flapped gracefully through a high open window and settled on the ground, the wings unraveling and unstitching into 1,000 sheets of paper. She shook the worst of the rain from her cloak as she turned to the other figure there. Pain-sama. The other figure nodded to her. Conan. What of the interlopers? They retreated shortly. I believe they were a Konoha ANBU team. The figures showed no emotion at all. They are of no concern. Itachi and Kisame returned with the second IWA Jinchuriki. We are going to perform the sealing soon, she nodded. They had to gather the beasts for peace. She regretted that violence was ever necessary for their task. They began to walk to the great sealing chamber beneath the tower. Citizens of AIM bowed or ducked out of their way as the god and his angel walked amongst them. Murmured whispers of praise followed them. The great chamber was empty and vast, fully 100 meters deep and at least a few hundred meters in every direction. A figure at the bottom of the chamber placed their hands on the ground and summoned the statue. Soon the others would arrive. They took their positions on the outstretched bone fingers as the other members of Akatsuki arrived. She knew them all, although each wasn't what you could call a friend. Akatsuki wasn't really a place for friends. Deidara, Sasori, the zombie brothers, Zetsu, Itachi and Kisame. All deadly shinobi in their own right, and working in pairs they could cover what few weaknesses existed. Kisame dumped the body before the statue and Pain began the sealing. Chakra ebbed from the stricken Jinchuriki and into the statue. Pain began to speak. Another beast will soon be sealed. What beasts remain? Itachi spoke in a deep monotone, his eyes concentrating on the task at hand. We have now captured the 4 tails, 5 tails, 6 tails, 7 tails and 1 tails. That means the 2, 3, 8 and 9 remain free. The other members nodded. Pain continued. We know their locations, do we not? Itachi kept speaking. The 2 and 8 tails remain in Kumo. The 3 tails has yet to reform since Yugura's death, and the 9 tails remains hidden. Pain turned to look at Zetsu, who didn't look back at him. Still? This is taking you longer than I would expect, Zetsu. The Nine Tails is proving more tricky than we thought. We can find him eventually. He must be in Konoha. Do so as soon as this is finished. Zetsu nodded. Hide in Kakuzu, you will go into Kumo to capture the Two Tails. Deidara, Sasori, you will travel to Konoha in order to obtain information about the Nine Tails with Zetsu. You may use whatever force you need to. Deidara looked pleased about this. Itachi, Kisame. Your job will be to capture the Nine Tails should Deidara and Sasori draw it out and fail to capture it. Wait until then before doing anything more. Itachi didn't look around, much as he hadn't through the entire process. Understood, Leader Sama. The Akatsuki returned their focus to the task of extracting the tailed beast. The journey back had been mercifully uneventful for Naruto and the ANBU team. They had moved with renewed urgency that came with the burden of knowledge they held. The fact they didn't decide to really wait to and just barged into Tsunade's office, and into a scene of furious debate. Give me the damn sake shizen. Get the paperwork done, Tsunade-sama. The ANBU paused in the doorway as they watched Tsunade frantically searching her entire office for the rumored drink. Was now a good time to back out and knock politely. Naruto merely walked in and stood in front of Tsunade directly. Her search paused and Talon waited to see what would happen next. After all, the legendary sucker had a reputation for a short temper. He decided to sneak a glance in Shizen's direction instead. She met his gaze with an exasperated expression and a palm to her face. What do you want? I'm busy. Reporting from our mission, Hokage-sama. The fist was cocked back. Naruto didn't flinch or move. We encountered the Akatsuki. The fist gently dropped away. Shit. What does excrement have to do with this situation? Tsunade went from angry to confused to realization in about 5 seconds, with every in-between stage shown on her face. Talon coughed in a way that sounded suspiciously like he was trying very hard not to laugh as Tsunade sat behind her desk and swept everything off it with one movement. Shizen signed and started picking up the bits of paper as best she could. Talon. Mission report. In full. Now, Talon gave the report. The few days of travel and finding nothing in IWA territory were dealt with in short order before he launched into an explanation of the battle, Hare chiming in with his observations of the fight as well. Tsunade noted it down, a thoughtful expression on her face. Talon then spoke about the pursuit and his stopping at AIM. Tsunade nodded in satisfaction. So IWA has lost a Jinchuriki. They probably won't tell anyone about that for some time. AIM is worrying though. Shizen, fetch Jiraiya for me, you know where to look. Shizen left, and Tsunade put her fingers together in thought. We were lucky that virtually nobody knows who our Jinchuriki is, or you might have been in trouble, Naruto. Naruto kept himself in check. He was going to lie to the Hokage because it was for the best. His encounter had to be kept secret. Indeed. I assume you successfully remained hidden? Yes. I appear not to have been captured. She nodded. Talon, your team is dismissed. I expect a full written report as soon as you can make it. Naruto, I need to talk further with you. The ANBU left, Talon throwing a short glance back at Naruto who wasn't looking. Tsunade leaned over the desk, and he kept his eyes firmly meeting her gaze. I read your report. I scarcely believe it, but I read the whole thing. Shizen has read it at least 3 times over. However, we are both dissatisfied with it. Shizen because she wants more of it to read, and me because something was missing from it. The document covers my entire time in the base. Tsunade smiled. I need to know what happened on the way back when Hinata's team found you. They found you having what sounded like a seizure in the forest before you blacked out. What happened then? Without those final few hours, the report is currently incomplete, he remembered. He'd been running through the forests, unsure of what territory he was in. He'd run and run as if an army were at his heels. Then the shadow clone had burst and... Naruto? He regained his focus and controlled himself. I was returning from the base, and was unsure of the territory I was in. I was hoping to reach a major road so as to navigate back to Konoha. A shadow clone I had in Orochimaru's base expired, and that must have prompted my reaction. Her gaze narrowed. He realized the explanation wasn't good enough. Must have? You sound unsure about this. I am unsure, Hokage-sama. My memory of the event is hazy. The shadow clone had been under torture from Orochimaru's forces. He'd known what had done it since the conversation with Talon in the hospital. The pain in his side was flaring up again. He had to not show it this time. He realized a moment later that trying to hide it from the best medic in the world wasn't going to work. He'd been lucky that Shizen had inspected him the first time. Tsunade advanced on him swiftly. Show me your side. He raised the shirt and felt the chill air hit the burning flesh. It was deeply uncomfortable. He heard the intake of breath as she examined his side. She drew back, her face turned away from him and shaking. He realized she was shaking. You idiot. You used it. You used the seal. You did that. She looked at him with disbelieving eyes. Sadness and disgust ran through her face like a shadow. And you don't even know what caused you to do it, do you? You took the easy way out. Jiraiya is going to remove that seal and you are going to face that memory. That was unexpected and made him shake a little. If I am hiding from it, how bad do you think it is? I can remember almost all of the torture inflicted on me by Orochimaru's torturers. What could be worse than that? His voice echoed around the room and he realized that he had shouted that last sentence extremely loudly. He felt the shaking course through him like a fiery current. She looked shocked, her eyes wide. She stopped walking away and knelt, looking into his eyes. He could see the flecks of tears forming a little. I don't know. Whatever it is, keeping it in is going to be worse for you. From what Jiraiya has told me, that seal can be broken accidentally if you dwell on it too much. If that happens on a mission, you will experience it again. That will get you killed. Until you deal with it, you will not go on missions. Naruto wanted to fight it and run, never stopping to be away from this conversation. So he did. He was out of the window and into the night before Tsunade could grab him. She looked at the curtains as they rustled gently in the breeze. Her fist broke the floorboard it hit, and had Shizen rushed back into the room to find her master kneeling by the broken board, her hand bleeding from the splintering impact. Tsunade-sama! What? He's out there, and he's scared Shizen. Get Kakashi, Anko, and Talon out searching now. Also fetch me teammate. Who? Just do it. I've made a terrible mistake. That was the tone reserved for surgical emergencies, the tone that was obeyed instantly. Shizen started running. Chapter 38, Crimson Mist. He kept running. He didn't know where he was going to run to, or whether or not it was a wise or logical decision, but he started running. He was going flat out, and wanted to be going faster. He was still jinking about because he knew someone would try to follow him. He dropped a scent bomb just to be sure and tracked through it a half-dozen times before sprinting for the training grounds. Lots of cover. Lots of space. Easy to see people coming. Lots and lots of places to hide. Lots of places to be alone. Tree branches snapped as he barreled through them, not caring for the sting of the impacts. He could heal, he would not be caught. He was angrier than he had ever felt, and the restriction from the seal was working overtime as the rage began to wake something dormant within him. Naruto's hand reached the grip of his tanto, and it felt good. When had he last had a chance to really train? There was a training log standing near the edge of a copse of wood. He felt the urge to practice some sword strokes. He twisted left and right as he slashed furiously. Each cut was made in pretense of a different enemy. Tall, short, each cut made to strike a vital area precisely. He continued to hack away. His blade bit into the wood with precision every time. The once perfect surface soon was covered in precise cuts and notches. His arm was beginning to tire, and he put the tanto back into its holder. He began to practice his limited taijutsu knowledge. He sent kick after kick into the post, spinning and ducking and striking at different heights. Then he felt a presence near him and spun towards it instead, readying his hands into a knife edge to catch his attacker. Hands caught his blow and turned them aside. Whoever this was, they were going to be fighting him. He swept a leg at the figure, who leapt over it before he struck upwards with a fist. His fist was caught, and he rolled under the strike that followed it up, grabbing the hand to bring them over his head. They landed neatly and caught him in the stomach with a kick of their own. He felt a flare of pain light up where it had hit, and it felt good. He doubled back and drew his tanto again. The figure was coming for him once more. He knew this person, but he didn't care. The jumped over the thrust and his arm went numb with the gentle touch he couldn't avoid. He dropped the blade and ducked under the next strike, using his other arm to drag the assailant over himself. She bounced off the ground and rolled back upright. Her face was set in concern and her mouth was moving. He realized he hadn't been hearing anything. Just empty, informationless noise. Something in his belly felt hot and angry. His main seal was doing something. He thought he heard a low growl deep within his subconscious but forced it out of his head with a grunt. He looked up, the moment of concentration letting him see his assailant moving back into for a series of attacks. He realized who it was just in time to be struck by a series of juken strikes. He fell back with a grunt of pain as his assailant stood over him. He saw his vision fade from red to the colors of the night, and the worried face before him became paler. The large eyes looked worried, just like Tsunade's had. Naruto-kun, sorry about the attack, but I didn't want you to hurt yourself. She began to undo the damage. I heard you training and looked. It was what he did when he was angry, Naruto realized it was. He'd seen Baka go through something similar. He felt suddenly drained and felt the bruises forming on his hands and legs. He reached into his pocket for something once his arm worked again. The tin was opened, and Hinata stopped as he took a tiny amount of the remaining cream and applied it to his hands. There was so little left. 3 years, he must have had some scrapes and cuts in that time, but he'd kept using it. The pain subsided a little in his hands. He fell back and sat, breathing deeply as Hinata sat next to him with a concerned expression on her face. "What's wrong?" "I am angry. I have never felt this uncontrolled before. I am calmer, but I lost control for the second time. The first time I killed him. The second I tried to kill you again. I am sorry." She knew he was. He wasn't looking at her. She thought she saw the slight glistening of tears in and moonlight as they rested by his eye. Her visit had been interrupted by the noise Naruto had been making, and she knew he needed someone more than the memorial did. Then again, she'd been in that place before once or twice. Anger isn't a nice place to be, is it? It is not. It is like the feeling I have about some of my kills. She sat a little more comfortably opposite him. She realized she wanted to know more. Which one? It was nearly 10 years ago now. Her face. I remember her face. Tell me. All of it. He felt he had to. The voice compelled him to speak. I was on one of my earliest missions. It was a border post that Kumo holds up north. It was a couple of years after an incident where they had attempted to kidnap the Hyuga heiress. Something clicked in his mind. That was you, was it not? She nodded. She didn't want to remember the fear and terror of the man's grip and angry voice any longer. She was past that. Apparently the commander of the post was stirring up trouble and had conducted some minor raids into Konoha territory. 3 civilians dead in an outskirt town. Too remote for us to properly defend. I was dispatched to deal with the threat. I infiltrated the border post and planned to kill the man whilst he slept. Even the best shinobi sleep deeply enough that they can't react to a crossbow bolt 2 feet away. It took a day to get into position, and then on the second night I put the bolt through his head. Barely a noise. He was dead and I made to escape. I was young. I made a mistake that came with inexperience. I checked my kill from too close, and didn't see her coming into the room. Hinata drew breath again. She was finding it hard to whilst he told the story. She was a simple maid. She hadn't been sleeping and had heard a soft noise. I guess now she might have had some form of relationship to the man. It didn't matter. She walked in and saw me. She saw the body of the man. There was a lot of blood and other entrails, but headshots do that to people. Hinata didn't want to imagine too vividly. I was lucky that it took her a moment to process the scene. My crossbow wasn't within easy reach, so I had to attack with a kunai. She screamed just before I got the strike in. She didn't resist. It took 3 stabs to kill her. That is 3 too many. It should have been 1 slash across the throat and Hinata held up a hand. Just skip the description, please. He nodded. I panicked and heard her scream and saw her face. There was more blood. I had to hide quickly before the rest of the garrison awoke. I could have died easily that night, but I lived. I lived because I could hide. She nodded as he seemed to sag a little, his story told. You remember her though? Yes. Every time I hear a scream from a woman I am reminded of it. I am reminded of her pain and my failure, and the first time I felt fear. I haven't felt it often. He felt Hinata stiffen and her head turn. He activated his Byakugan. Approaching was Kiba and Shino. He made to move away, but Hinata gently grabbed his arm. He resisted for a brief moment. Shino will stop Kiba from interfering if we are not fighting. He will understand. I do not wish to be found. She smiled a little bit. Surely being found is okay if they do not talk to you. He considered it. It was suboptimal, but it was acceptable enough. He saw Kiba come into eye range and pause. Shino too saw them, and turned Kiba away. Hinata knew her teammates well. Your knowledge of your team's actions is appreciable. Hinata nodded. I've known them for years now. It gets like that. Why were you angry then? He realized the reason and felt ashamed. He knew it was shame because it burned at him like his failure to get a clean kill did. Hokage-sama told me that I was not allowed to take on any further missions because I made a bad personal decision. That sounded odd. Was it a medical choice? In a way. I used something I shouldn't have and it's bad. What did you do? He wondered whether it was a good idea to tell her the truth or not. In the end, why shouldn't he? I was as far as he got as a figure bounded into the clearing and tackled Naruto to the ground in a tight embrace. You have a lot of explaining to do, Darky-kun. Anko-chan. That would scare him, but his major concern was his lack of oxygen intake due to being unable to breathe. He struggled a little against the death grip, and got just enough air to avoid passing out. Anko-chan. Please loosen your grip. No, Hinata stared. She'd never have a good chance to get the answer out of him unless. She turned back to the monument, and realized what she had to do. Ano, Anko-san, I need to return home. Anko realized Hinata was there. She smirked. Wasn't interrupting anything, was I? Hinata looked shocked and a little pink. Naruto knew the answer, and summoned what little breath he had left. Yes, but it is too late now. Anko's grin widened and Hinata looked utterly confused and very pink. He realized he must have done something wrong. He'd ask her about that later. Anko's grip loosened enough for him to breathe somewhat normally. Then he was slapped in the face a couple of times, the hits punctuated with words. Where have you been? My mission went on longer than expected. Please stop assaulting me. She let up a little. Why did you escape TNI? How did you escape TNI? Seriously, what the hell? I escaped because I needed to report to the Hokage. I escaped using my skills in a henge, and I have not been to hell. If I have, I do not remember it. She looked at him and smiled. Still the same Darkikuin? I think so. I have the same DNA and limbs as before. She smiled wider. Tsunade sent us out looking for you. You seem to have found Hinata okay. What's going on there? She found me whilst I was training. That was at least one way of putting it. His hands were still bleeding a little, and then we talked. She is a friend, I guess. Friend or friend? What is the difference? Anko smiled. He had no idea still. Then again, he probably didn't run into any nice ladies whilst in Orochimaru's base. Well, friends is what we are. Friends is something a little bit more special. Naruto had heard the term before. His brain began to pick up the clues more quickly now, noting all previous interaction. Particularly a conversation with Talon. Are you implying sexual relations between myself and Hinata-san? Anko grinned widely. That far already? You've only been back a week, and some of that has been on a mission. How do you know that? A shadow of embarrassment crossed her face. Tsunade-sama, lie. Was it Talon? She stared at him for a moment. I'll stop asking questions about Hinata-chan if you never bring that up again. That seemed fair, yet her accusations had been incorrect, if he was reading them correctly. Still, it seemed the issue was not conducive to polite conversation. Agreed. Anko smiled a more friendly smile. It's good to see you alive. Although I take it you've done something to make her angry. Hokage-sama? Yes. The floor was in several pieces when we got there. She was in tears. It takes a lot to do that to her. I think she cares more about you than you expect. Her response is too emotive for me to consider it the correct one. I heard what you did. It is. You know it is. He'd known it from the moment he'd realized. He had made the biggest mistake of his life, and he was too afraid to undo it. It is. I do not wish to undo it. You have to. You know it will only be worse in time. She was right, but he couldn't fight it. He could talk to her, but he found himself wishing he was talking to Hinata instead. She was calm and made him want to talk. Indeed, she got the hint. She was surprised he'd even made it like that. If you want to talk, come to me when you're ready, okay? I will, Anko-chan. She ruffled his hair, noting the unwashed spikiness that had grown since he'd last cut it back. She wondered how long it could get if left. Goodness knows it could become a mane of hair. Good. She has a mission for you when you are ready to talk to her. Or more likely when she's ready for you. He nodded. He missed the warmth of his bed and felt the need to stay there for some hours. He went home in his usual manner, avoiding all human contact. He found his window had been repaired by someone, and the place dusted and cleaned. He didn't care. The soft orange covers of his bed awaited him, and he welcomed them with open arms. Tsunade-sama? She looked up from the desk at the nervous girl who had crept into her office. Tsunade had pulled herself into her chair and was trying to get something useful done. It wasn't working. Hinata, what brings you here? I talked to him. I accept my mission. Tsunade considered telling her about the memory seal but decided against it. Naruto could tell her that in his own time. Excellent. The overall purpose is to ascertain the final day or so of his mission, which we have been unable to work out. Be gentle and careful, and not direct. She passed Hinata a fairly large book. It was entitled, The Tale of the Hidden Shadow. She looked up questioningly at her commander. It's a copy of his report bound into novel form. It's not due to go on sale for another year, but it's his report faithfully reproduced word for word. Read it, and find out what the final bit should have read like. If anyone asks, it's something I suggested you read. Your father would accept that excuse. Hinata nodded. The book was quite thick. Also, see if you can help him through any other issues he may have. It will help you as well, Hinata. I'll need you to keep training and going on regular missions as well, and I may add him to your team. She nodded again. She didn't regret any of the hardship, and her knowledge that she wouldn't be a shinobi right now had been shattered when he had come back into her life. She barely remembered wanting to quit. She had purpose again. She turned to leave with renewed energy. Oh, and Hinata? Yes, Hokage-sama? Don't compare him to someone else who isn't here anymore. It's time to move on from the past. Those words shocked her a little. Move on? Had she held on? He had been a lot to her, and his presence had given her strength. Hi. She left the office and Tsunade relaxed a little bit. He was safe. She was going to counsel him. That, and she would have to be careful they didn't get too close to one another until the mission was completed. Chapter 39, Diminutive. He awoke to the darkness of his room and to the feeling of his room gently vibrating. That woke him up better than 1,000 buckets of water to the face. That meant something big was happening outside. The room shook again. He could smell rubble and a hint of smoke. Definitely big. He got his equipment ready and left in a hurry. First, he was going to find out what was going on. Then he was going to do whatever his duty was. This wasn't a mission, this was defense of Konoha. He liked the fact the logic he just used had been twisted into his favor. He activated his Byakugan to see a bloom of chakra erupt from the outskirts of the village. There was a large jutsu being employed there then. He checked all around and saw something in the sky. A figure on a dragon? That was interesting and unexpected. He realized it would take someone pretty special to just attack Konoha like this. Not only was it likely full of elite shinobi, but it had a good intelligence network and route protecting it. He wondered how odd it was that his former master hadn't seen this coming or intercepted it early. Still, causes could wait. Right now, he needed solutions. Konoha was under attack, and he had to defend it. The person might be powerful, but his objective didn't necessarily have to be to kill them outright. He needed to find out what they wanted, and get them away from Konoha to prevent damage. Hopefully he'd get some backup. As he thought that, a fireball jutsu flew to one side of the man on the clay dragon that gently maneuvered it to avoid the clumsy jutsu, the flight looking effortless and gentle. He then threw down a white object that exploded, so he was an explosive expert who used clay? Naruto considered his options. There were probably other shinobi in the village better suited to taking the man on, but it was his duty to try. He readied his bow and moved, judging the distance until he definitely within range. He attached an explosive tag to the bolt. The extra power would certainly make up for the loss in accuracy. It would also get the man's attention far more easily. He aimed carefully, taking into account wind conditions, gravity, and the man's slight movement. He breathed out as he fired the first shot. The man reacted to it by dropping a little. The tag exploded close enough to shake the man up. Naruto almost smiled. His foe was cocky. Then again, his trick wouldn't work twice. He moved, throwing up a genjutsu to hide himself as he rolled onto another rooftop, this one closer to the edge wall of the village. His foe was distracted by more jutsu from below. He could see the cloak the man was wearing now. Akatsuki, so they had come either for him, or for information about him. He aimed the bow again and fired 3 shots in quick succession, the first at the man, then 2 at where he suspected the man would go. He felt a touch of annoyance when the man used his clay dragon as a shield, the soft clay simply absorbing the impact of the bolts, so the man could see if bolts carried explosive tags. He was observant, but still hadn't seen him. He moved to another rooftop, very close to the edge of Konoha now. He was almost directly below the man. He fired a bolt with an exploding tag attached, and watched as the man swerved out of the way more vigorously this time. Hopefully the man could establish a pattern that he could crack. He leapt onto the walls and ran up to the top. He was probably visible here, even with his cloak becoming the same gray as the walls. He looked up at the man who was looking straight at him. The dragon swooped low, swerving to avoid Naruto's potshot attempt to shoot the man off the beast. The beast swooped down to hover in front of him, the man looking him in the face from about 5 meters away. Do you like my? He ducked as Naruto tried to shoot him point blank. The man leapt off the dragon, letting it fall to the base of the walls. Naruto realized what was going to happen next and dived behind the nearest cover before bracing himself. The explosion ripped out half the base of the wall and much of the surrounding earth. The vibration shook the stone walls and they began to fall outwards. He found himself leaping from fragment to fragment as he tried to stay on top as some 20 meters of wall began to fall downwards. He reached the bottom and immediately replaced himself with some splintered wood, which promptly disintegrated in an explosion from a waiting clay bomb. Come out! Actually don't. I'll blast you out unless you tell me where the Ninetales is. Naruto considered his position. He was slightly hidden in the woods, but the man could simply level the area and kill him in the process. His opponent was cocky and liked big displays of power. That was useful. He looked at the man with his Byakugan. His hands had mouths. That was just anatomically wrong. They were eating, for want of a better word, the clay, and it came out charged with chakra. That explained the explosive properties. From the satchels by his sides, he only had so much of the clay. Presumably it was specially prepared beforehand, so his opponent was a long-range explosives expert with limited ammunition. He considered his options. Outright kill in combat was out immediately. Too many unknowns about other jutsu and skills the man had. He would fight him like he had fought Niji that long time ago. Only this time he would have to try and kill him, or survive until someone else could. The man was tossing a clay bomb gently from hand to hand in a bored fashion. Come on. It'll be a blast. Just tell me what I need to know and I won't blow you up. Or maybe I will. Art doesn't compromise after all. He tossed the bomb idly over his shoulder, and some bushes exploded. Naruto made a clone and backed off. Test the opponent. Know him. Find his weakness and strike. The clone leapt out, Tanto blade poised to strike from above. The man ducked and turned. Ooh, you think that tiny blade gives you an advantage here? The clone lunged forwards again, attacking furiously. The man was dodging with some ease, and starting to look bored. Naruto knew the clone's next order. Try enraging the man. Work out what he enjoyed and belittle it as best he could. He considered the insults that the ANBU team shared, and decided to try something similar. Your hands are abnormal, and so is your face. A fine start to the insults. Naruto wondered why the man nearly laughed at the insult as he kept dodging. Is that the best insult you have, shorty? Okay, so physical deformity, wasn't it? He crossed it off the checklist of insulting things he could try. He remembered some of the more anatomical banter he'd heard amongst the ANBU. Your penis is of diminutive stature. As are your skills. The man ducked under another swing and caught the clone's arm, pinning it behind his back in unorthodox style. Seriously? You're not good at this. I believe so, yes. The man sighed as the clone hinged into a kunai, slipped out his grasp and unhinged, thrusting upwards. He somersaulted out of the way of the strike. Not bad. Nothing compared to my art though. The clone's Byakugan was active, and it saw the bomb coming. Naruto observed the battle carefully. He wouldn't reveal himself until it was entirely necessary. The bomb missed his clone, who decided to try hitting the man with the genjutsu. He realized he'd have to sacrifice the clone soon. Its reserves were getting lower by the moment. The man didn't dispel the genjutsu and just saw through it. Okay, genjutsu immune, or at least sight. The clone tried an auditory genjutsu. The man leapt towards the clone, who was doing his best to project the sound of 1,000 crossbow bolts into the man's mind. Apparently he could hear that. Not entirely immune then. Still, his clone couldn't use another jutsu for now, its chakra low, and he'd rather not have it dispel until it had to. The man caught the clone with a series of taijutsu moves, leading to the clone being locked into a submission grip. Talk. No. The man sighed and snapped the clone's neck, causing it to leave existence. He hit the ground angrily. A clone? Naruto hit the man with another auditory genjutsu, and whispered all around the man. Yes. Was that all you had? Or is your art weak? The man dispelled the illusion and threw bombs in every direction. Naruto moved to avoid being exploded as the undergrowth around Konoha exploded into firewood. There were some screams as an unlucky Chunin who'd come out ran into it. Alright. You die, you short arse. C2, another dragon formed. That was good, Naruto could deal with that. The man couldn't see him, and he could see the dragon. Plus he might get some backup if they saw it. He idly wondered where everyone else was. He kept moving, and began dodging away from the area the dragon was vomiting bombs onto. Naruto fired another harassing bolt, and Karawimi'd away from the location before it once more dissolved into splintered wood and flying dirt. Apparently his foe made that clay last a long time before he had to make more. He could see the man above scanning the forest for him. Without visual genjutsu, he had to rely on camouflage and swift relocation to prevent himself being spotted in the forest. He was leading the man around the walls and slightly further out, towards his ideal battleground. The forest of death had taller trees and bigger risks for the man to take. All he needed was to get the man into a fight on his terms. How to do that? Would the man retreat once he was low on clay? Could he risk that happening? He kept having to switch with various, short-lived, objects as explosions roared around him. The edge of the forest was getting closer, the trees a darker shade of wood and more menacingly tall. He wondered how high the dragon could fly. It certainly had limitations. The shape was wrong for efficient flight. As he reached the taller trees, he began to climb. Too many dangers below. Splinters like saban needles could get thrown up by explosions, as could rocks that would have a similar effect to a shuriken. He could see in his Byakugan the man was following him. He fired another bolt, trying his best to fire from lower. He didn't want to give away his height that easily. He found a wide branch and stopped moving for a moment. He had about half a bandolier of ammunition left, and the rest of his usual kit. That was acceptable. He leaned out and hit the man with another auditory genjutsu. He had to pick his words carefully. The man would simply dispel it when he knew he was hit. Your art is of inferior quality. The angry yell and larger explosion let him know he'd hit the mark. That was good. He knew his opponent's favorite thing and would insult it endlessly. The man was descending lower on the dragon, hesitantly and slowly, unsure of Naruto's location. You think my art is inferior? Meet my greatest art then. C4. The giant man was cartoonish, inflated, and ridiculous. It was tall, and wide, and incredibly round. Naruto didn't really see the threat. The amount of chakra and clay required for such a clone meant it was likely hollow. Then it collapsed into dust and Naruto realized the true danger. Naruto saw the air around the man suddenly begin filling with chakra and started to move. He made a shadow clone to distract the man and they bolted through the trees. The glow was spreading quickly around him. The man had seen the clone and was moving to block it off. He wanted to herd Naruto into the glow. How much chakra did this technique take? How much would the man have left afterwards? The glow was spreading faster than he could run. He needed to find somewhere good to dive into. A small cave presented itself to one side and he dove into it, making a clone to keep running as he did so. He landed in the cave and rolled as the clone tried to get away from it. He didn't want to risk the explosion collapsing the cave. He made himself ready to run from it if he needed to. There wasn't an explosion as such. The area of the chakra was just disintegrated and disappeared as a billion tiny explosions ripped everything apart. Creatures great and small were destroyed in a sudden and confusing moment. After that, physics took over and the hot air and particles left moved upwards. The gap left was suddenly filled with howling wind as pressure rebalanced. Naruto held on as dank air from the cave rushed outwards from behind him. Balance achieved, the air pushed out a little as things settled down. The man landed his dragon in the center of the clearing created. The fine dirt had become and dusty gray sand, and there was no more cover. The man patted his dragon and laughed. I know you're still out there. Your clone disappeared before disintegrating. The man was looking at the cave. Naruto realized he was cornered. He considered running into the cave, but that was a bad idea. An explosion would trap him and that was probably not a good place to be. He silently cursed his lack of options when cornered. His summon were not combat specialists, even their strongest wouldn't pose any threat. His weapons could hold the man at bay, but he needed the cover. He looked at his crossbow and saw the chakra conducting wire attached to the firing mechanism. He'd never been taught how to channel chakra through it. Could he work out how in? He checked the man's position. 2 minutes? Unlikely. So he couldn't really run, he couldn't really fight, and he was cornered. The only advantage he had was the QB, and he didn't want to do that. Not yet. That was a definite last resort measure. He needed time. More time would give him more options. How could he gain more time? He could talk. But why would the man keep him alive? He realized his option was to give the man some information. He was pacing closer. Come out, little leaf. Come out and talk to me. I might just let you live. Naruto slung the bow onto his back and walked into the open. His opponent looked faintly surprised. Okay. What do you need to know? The man looked at him, cocking his head. This doesn't normally happen. Normally you're meant to stay there and die after saying something like nevermore. Or over my dead body. Oh. Would you prefer that? The man laughed. Oh, a comedian. Well then, since you want to talk. Where is the QB? Naruto considered his options. He was, to this man, just another leaf nin. Yes, he had genjutsu and shadow clones, but how special was that? The shadow clone was a high-ranked jutsu. He was likely a jonin to the man. It was killed by the 4th Hokage and has yet to reform, like everyone from Konoha knows. The man laughed again. You don't really believe that, do you? You think he could kill such a beast? He was able to defeat IWA nearly single-handedly, although Naruto knew that Danzo had played a little part in that in the background. His father had been good, but the root operations had been quietly working away in the background. It was amazing what a little rumor spreading and removal of calm heads could do. The man looked angry at the mention. IWA was a shit dump. That's why I left. So IWA missing nin then. Presumably that was where he had obtained the jutsu. Naruto saw the scratched headplate and had it confirmed. How had he missed that? Naruto knew he had to play slightly dumb. The idea was distasteful to him. He had to lie. He felt his pulse rise as the enormity of the situation began to dawn on him again. He was cheating death by the moment, and the margins were not very thick. He didn't defeat the Kyuubi? The man shook his head. Stop playing the dumbass. I know that you know he sealed it into a child. He remembered Jiraiya telling him the truth about his father by accidentally letting it slip and decided to do the same. That child is an outcast. The man smiled widely and manically. See, you do know the child in question. They would be about 15 or 16. In fact, about your size shortars. I think you know him. All too well, Naruto considered. He decided to switch back to lying. He's an outcast. Why would I know him if he is? But you know of him? Where does he go? Naruto tried his best to think of convincing ideas. Someone was approaching in the distance. He needed them behind the man for maximum effect. He began to gently walk around in a circle and the man laughed. Stay still or I blow you to pieces. Can your one eye not see this bomb? He stopped. The threat was real. He goes here. I didn't know you were after him. The man shrugged. I'm not, but my organization is. Something about gathering all the tailed beasts. Oh, the man narrowed his eyes. You don't seem surprised. You know more than I thought. No sense pretending now then. Naruto had the bow in his hands and started firing. His opponent was fast with his work and a clay clone took the bolts, the metal shaft sticking in the clay statue. It exploded, sending the bolts scattering in all directions. Naruto felt one pass near his head, the air turbulence shaking his hood. Far too close. The smoke hid the man and Naruto moved towards what cover remained. The man's leg nearly met him as he slid under it. His tanto caught the next blow. The hands, with their open mouths gaping and trying to gnash at him, pressed against the flat of the blade. He snuck a kunai into his other hand and struck for the man's hands, causing him to dance away before they could be hurt. A kick caught him in the ribs and sent him backwards. He rolled away. The figure was closer now, running fast. He had to keep the man's attention. He rose up and reached for his blowgun. The man just batted it away. Naruto realized he was utterly outmatched, and the next kick sent him stumbling backwards before another caught him under the chin. He coughed a little blood up and stumbled away from the man. By time. The man attacking him walked slowly towards him. You're boring and not worthy of my art. Thanks for nothing. Naruto saw the figure come in behind the man and take a great flying leap, arm cocked back. Thanks for talking, you flashy idiot. What? He spun just in time to meet Enko's fist coming the other way and he recoiled, blood streaming from a broken nose. Happy to see me, Darky-kun? Never happier, Enko-chan. He's extremely dangerous. Chapter 40. Consequences. Enko slammed her hands to the ground. Shadow snake hands. Hundreds of snakes spewed from the ground and converged on the man who leapt over them, leaving a clay clone in his wake. The explosion sent snakes flying everywhere. Enko leapt to meet and the two exchanged blows before they landed, still brawling fiercely. The man was stronger than Enko, but not by much. She was a lot more vicious. He threw her off and stood panting as she rose. A cut on his face trickled a little blood. She had punched the lens he wore over his eye back into face, and his face now bled around the area. He tore the device away angrily. You bitch! That took me years to perfect. Enko grinned. Oh, you don't even know the half of it. Kuchio's no jutsu. A huge serpent suddenly filled a fair portion of the forest. It stared at the man with large, hungry eyes and lunged. The man started running. Naruto leapt up after it and Enko followed. Now he had the upper hand. The man would talk or he would die. The serpent was fast, but the man was more nimble. Every lunge was avoided and tiny explosions rippled of the smooth, hard scales, and the beast gave an enraged hiss as some were broken or torn off by the constant tiny assault. Naruto tracked him with his crossbow. He hungered for a good shot. The last one he had fired had missed. This one would hit. This one would stay true. He could feel it. The tip of the bolt weaved around, following and tracking. But he was moving too fast, he needed to get closer. Enko was following too, but even with the three of them they couldn't force the man to move where they wanted. The trees were too thick and too many to really force him around properly and trap him. Enko fell back into line with him as they leapt tree to tree. She shouted to him as they weaved through the forest of death. Any ideas? More backup. Any plausible ideas? No. They kept following the man. Despite keeping his aim, bouncing from tree to tree and tracking the man with his Byakugan, his brain whirred. 100 scenarios were found, examined and found wanting again, then discarded into the cesspit of wasted thought. He needed more space, or for the man to turn and run. The fact he hadn't simply made a dragon meant he was low on clay. That was a good thing. The fact he could only annoy the large snake was also good. He stopped for a moment, and placed his own hand down. Fitch appeared in a puff of smoke on his shoulder. "Move, boy, keep moving and we'll talk on the way." He did so, the rat clinging to his shoulder, the claws digging in slightly uncomfortably. "How would you trap someone who doesn't want to be trapped?" The rat considered the proposition and scratched his rat chin. "You either force them to fight, or you let them go and let them trap themselves. But be wary, you know what happens when you trap someone. They fight harder." The rat nodded out of his vision. "Be careful. I sense there is more to come from him. I will assist you in trapping him." The rat leapt from his shoulders and into the trees around him. Naruto realized he didn't know the capabilities of one of his closest allies and mentally chided himself for it. He kept his aim moving as the man kept going. Naruto felt glad that his stamina was now higher than his opponent's. He realized he wanted to know their name. Then he realized the plan. "Anko, force him downwards." "Got it." The snake and Anko went high as Naruto kept chasing. How the man was keeping up with it he had no idea, but it didn't matter. You could only run so long. He had left himself open, and Anko had capitalized. He could still taste his own blood, but that was a small price to pay. Slowly the man descended, towards the ground. 20 meters, 15 meters, 10 meters. Then he ran out of space. He hit the ground and suddenly stopped running as something stopped him rising as fast as he could. A carpet of rats littered the forest floor, running in a giant pack at least 10 meters wide and 20 meters long. It was more rats than Naruto had ever seen. The snake plunged after him with Anko as they started weighting him down. He threw them off, but the damage was done. He couldn't run any further. Explosions began to litter the area, sending small furry bodies into the air 100 at a time. The rats were relentless and swarmed closer, clawing and scratching at him, biting him where they could. Anko got a good kick in and launched him a few meters, the rats closing in on his fallen body. Then it all changed. The man started laughing, rising slowly until he was standing despite the weight of rats. Fitch landed on Naruto's shoulder. "Fire now, boy, don't stare." Naruto raised the bow and fired cleanly. He watched as the bolt flew towards the man and impacted on his neck. The arterial spray thrown up as the bolt passed through his neck. The man gurgled slightly, his hands faltering in their last hand signs, and keeled over. He felt the pang of satisfaction as the memory of his last shot faded. This was him. He was in command. The rats scattered as the snake lunged for them, seeing 1,000 tiny snacks as opposed to allies. Anko dismissed her minion. She surveyed the body. Not bad, perfectly clean shot. Then he saw the chakra rise. "Anko, move!" She leapt just as the body exploded, throwing her backwards. Naruto moved to catch her, and was bowled over by the weight. He felt the fatigue of the battle creeping up on him as he tried to rise. Fooled by a clone. His Byakugan searched for a signature, and found one. "Underground. He's moving away underground." Anko rose blearily and stumbled a little. The smell of burned hair and flesh was wafting from her. Fitch surveyed her body. "She is in no state to continue. You must hunt him, Naruto. Go." "I will stay with her." He turned, but the rat's voice called out again. Others approach. 3 and a dog. "Do you know them?" He looked out and his heart leapt a little. 3 familiar signatures were moving towards him at speed. He kept his eye locked on the faint patch that denoted his quarry. It was moving away slightly quickly now. He began to move off slowly, making sure the squad could catch him. He heard his name called by Kiba and beckoned for them to catch him up. He saw Shino and Kiba enter his peripheral vision, and he smiled as they recognized the faces. "Naruto! What the hell is going on now? Tracking someone underground. He's weakened and we can take him." He couldn't see her. His vision was at full stretch, but her voice was soothing to him. "I can see him, Naruto-kun. You can relax now if you need to, you look tired." He let his Byakugan deactivate and felt his head feel lighter and more free. The headache from eye overuse wouldn't get any worse. Hinata took up the lead, her teammates behind her. Naruto couldn't help but notice how Kiba was running differently to before. His leg was moving differently. It looked like Kiba was struggling with it a little more than he wanted to let on. Despite being underground, the man was making good progress. Even so, Naruto knew he couldn't keep it up forever. The man was low on chakra. He would surface eventually. Hopefully he couldn't sense them following him. Naruto checked his bow was loaded and held it loosely as he followed. He was going to take the man's head off. Shino checked behind and saw Naruto's intention. "Naruto-san, it would be illogical to kill him immediately. If we can capture him, he undoubtedly holds a lot of valuable information. We need to try and extract that. I can drain him dry in short order. Hinata can then disable him. He nodded. He is still dangerous. If it comes to it, I will not hesitate to kill him. Shino didn't look round. Let us hope it does not come to that. They kept following. Hinata was moving fast and differently to how he'd seen her move before. There was more freedom to it, more intensity. Shino was the same as he remembered him. He felt a pang that he had missed so much time with them. They were still the same team, although someone was missing. Where is Kurenai-sensei? Kiba turned a little. He could see the boy had grown older. The marks on his cheeks were more pronounced on a longer face. She's on a mission elsewhere, but we're good enough to look after ourselves. Right, boy. The dog barked, and Naruto then realized quite how big he now was. The dog was bigger than he was and slobbered a little as it ran. He took in how sharp the claws were, and how easily it bounded alongside the shinobi. Yet it too walked a little oddly, like Kiba. He could see no deformity in the dog's legs though. It was healthy, just walking oddly. He looked back at Kiba and realized the dog was imitating his movements out of empathy. He'd never seen a better illustration of the concept. But what was wrong with Kiba? Kiba-san, what happened to your leg? Shino looked at him sharply. His expression was hidden under his hood and sunglasses, and Naruto had no idea what it was. He heard the sigh from Kiba. It was that mission where everything changed, Naruto. None of us made it out the same. Hinata nodded from the front, trying to remain focused on the task at hand. The figure was still moving underground, but he was slowing. Choji made it okay, but he came close to dying from exhaustion after using a clan technique. Niji took a pounding, and he actually came out of it better. I think the fact you beat him as well helped with that. Naruto remembered the occasion. He had beaten Niji, but the boy had still been angry about it. Lee got nearly destroyed. Both arms and a leg broken, and he would have died if the guy beating him up hadn't gone to protect Sasuke. Seriously, he was out for a year. Shino nodded and took up the tale. Kiba fought his opponent to a standstill for a long time until they got the advantage. The fact is, he only lived because they wanted to kill him and Akamaru slowly. They tried to do it by eating his body away from the inside. His leg was, it will never be the same. I've accepted this, Shino. I had it light compared to Lee and Shikamaru. They all looked down. Even Hinata took a moment to look away. Naruto didn't know who they were talking about. Was there another team his age he hadn't met? Who was Shikamaru? Kiba gave a small laugh. You never met him? No. Kiba continued the tale. He came an inch from death. His opponent was probably the worst for him, and she had him beaten. He got unmuscled and he couldn't quite outthink her in time. He had to use tactics that he should never have had to use. Naruto considered the proposition. It was just like what would have happened to him if he had been cornered. Shikamaru sounded like a thinker, like himself. He wished he'd been able to meet him. He detonated an explosive tag at point-blank distance. He got just far enough away that it didn't kill him. But the damage, Kiba trailed off. It makes me look like I got a scratch. Naruto considered this. What were the injuries? Kiba looked at Shino with a pleading expression for him to take over. Shino bowed his head. He lost an arm. He was lucky the blast cauterized the wound enough that he didn't bleed out. He was in a coma for 6 months. 6 months. He's had to retire. He didn't even call it troublesome. He spends a lot of time alone these days. None of the people who went on that mission were ever the same again. Choji and Ino were. Shino trailed off too. The silence was tense. They were distraught. We all were. We nearly lost half our friends, and we lost one of them who was possibly the best of us all. We all miss him. Shino and Kiba stared at Hinata. She was talking about it differently. Normally she would be in tears, or at least quiet. She seemed to have moved to a different place. There were still flecks of tears, but her words had been strong. We need to focus. He's rising. Kiba looked at Shino and pinched himself with a wide-eyed expression. Shino merely raised his hands a little before readying himself. Hinata stopped and held up a hand. The team gathered to her. Shino, do you have a plan? Shino nodded. It would be logical to capture our opponent as opposed to outright killing him. We will surround him, and I should be able to drain him with my bugs. Then Hinata and Kiba can subdue him. Naruto will hold back until he is needed. I will initiate any action. Naruto and Hinata can follow by using their eyes. Naruto nodded. The plan was logical and he had expected no less. Shino and Hinata departed, leaving Kiba on his side. The boy's nose sniffed the air. I can smell him. He's close to breaking the surface. About 50 meters in that direction. Naruto nodded. His head ached from overuse of his eye in combat. Kiba rubbed his leg gingerly, and let out a small growl or irritation. Akamaru placed a paw on his hand softly, the soft pad of his paw pressing gently onto Kiba's hand. He looked at his dog with a warm smile and ruffled the dog's head. "You're right, boy, no time to worry about a little pain. Naruto, can you get visual?" He nodded and felt the throb of the headache intensify a little bit as his vision adjusted again. Hinata and Shino were in position, and Shino had begun to move inwards. The man had only just broken out of the earth, and his dull signature was rising unsteadily. He was clearly tired. He shut off his eye as the team landed around the man who laughed. "Oh, you just do not give up. Fucking Hyuga as well. Well, this is going to be fun." Shino spoke first. "Surrender and we'll need not hurt you." The man cocked his head and laughed. "You think I'll surrender?" He leapt for Shino and Kiba spun into his side, driving him down. The man wasn't a highly skilled ninja for nothing and kicked Kiba away. Hinata came in again, and the man being more circumspect against the Hyuga girl. Shino was maneuvering, readying himself. Hinata leapt away from a punch, and the bugs swarmed the man. He thrashed, but the bugs were locked in, absorbing more and more of his chakra. Hinata and Kiba stayed warily out of the way. Naruto kept his crossbow aimed for the swarm of insects. Shino warily withdrew his insects from the man who was surprisingly still conscious. He started laughing as the insects moved to surround Shino again. "I've always wanted to do this to one of you bug freaks." Naruto realized the danger just in the nick of time. "Shino! Scatter your insects." The tone and urgency got to Shino just in time as he scattered his swarm. Katsu! Every bug filled with the man's chakra exploded at once, filling the air with smoke. Shino fell with an anguished cry as some bugs which were too close caused him pain. Hinata and Kiba were knocked to the ground. Naruto kept his aim trained on the man. Fortunately, the man seemed not to have the energy to continue. He was still laughing on one knee. The bugs had done the damage, eating at open wounds, draining chakra, forcing the man down. Naruto found himself resisting the temptation to shoot again and kill the man where he knelt. Hinata approached him cautiously, and he started to laugh. "I would rather die." He clapped his hands together, and Naruto saw the chakra build up. He fired, and for the second time his bolt caught the man squarely. The man wasn't moving, and this was an execution shot. It hit right where he aimed, between the eyes. The man dropped, his hands pressed to his chest. Whatever techniques he had been about to use, Naruto suspected it would have been deadly. Hinata ran to Shino, whose body gently smoked. "Shino-kun, are you alright?" Shino struggled to rise a little and groaned. "I am alright. My hive is nearly destroyed." Naruto held his arm out and Shino took it, rising gently to his feet. They surveyed the defeated body of their opponent. Naruto could tell this one wasn't a clone. He realized with a pang of regret he didn't know the man's name either. In fact, how many of the people he had killed had he known the name of? Sasuke for sure, but otherwise, he decided it was a topic for future reflection. He was still on a mission, even if it was self-imposed. Hinata applied some paste to Shino's wounds, and his sigh at the pain relief was a welcome noise. Parts of his jacket had burned away, and more of his face than normal was visible. He seemed unsure of this. Naruto dropped his own hood out of empathy. It felt right to do so when his comrade could not cover his own. Shino dusted himself down a little. "We should return to Konoha with the body and report to Hokage-sama." Naruto nodded and picked up the body. It was a lot bigger than his own, and he staggered a little under the weight. Kiba chuckled. "Don't worry, Naruto. Akamaru can carry him easily. Don't strain yourself, shorty." Hinata giggled a little. Naruto suddenly felt this was a little unfair. "My size is to my advantage most of the time." Kiba gave him an odd grin, but dropped it at Naruto's lack of reaction. Kiba helped the body onto Akamaru's back and they set off out of the forest of death. Hinata kept her eyes open and guided them around anything that looked too dangerous. There were certainly enough reasons for this place to be described as the forest of death. They found their way back to Ankle, who was sitting up and rubbing her side. She saw the body. "Did you have to kill him?" Naruto nodded. "Ah. If he had lived I would have tortured the shit out of him." "Don't you want the information and not his excrement?" Anko shrugged. "I suppose I'd want the information as well, but I'd do it mostly to get the fun of torturing him. I've actually literally tortured the shit out of anyone. I wonder if it is actually possible." Naruto shrugged himself. The gesture was odd to him. Fitch gave him a nod, and then disappeared back into smoke. Kiba looked a little astonished. "Rat summons?" Naruto nodded. "Wouldn't they be kinda useless? Are there giant battle rats? Otherwise, what exactly do they do?" Naruto sighed. The focus on the flashy was annoying even now. Intelligence gathering, swarm tactics, distractions, message carrying. Fish-sama is also wise counsel and skilled. Kiba shrugged. I'd rather have Akamaru and my clan dogs. Right, boy, the dog yipped a little. Shino coughed. We need to return to Konoha. Although we have taken out one of the assailants, there was another in Konoha itself. Tsunade-sama was preparing to deal with it. They had caught Naruto's attention. Surely such an opponent would be a he or she? Hinata shook her head. It was more of a machine, like a scorpion. It looked odd and our team was unable to help in fighting it. Then we noticed the fight here and came to help. Did nobody else other than you or Anko notice? Anko laughed. Probably, but they were probably preoccupied with helping civilians or dealing with the flame-throwing scorpion thing. Or being cowards. They began to move back towards Konoha. Anko turned to Hinata. Good thing you did or Byakugan might not have made it. Any reasons in particular you came to his rescue? Naruto heard the tone of voice shift into the one Anko used when she was implying sexual relations. He sighed. He'd already denied this particular accusation. Fortunately, Shino was ready to make the save. Anko-san, please desist from teasing Hinata-chan about relationships. She is too reserved for such joking to cause anything but negative feelings. Anko pouted at him. Spoilsport.